Oh, thank you. Yeah, just put it up there. Thank you. Just forget it.
If I got to go through the metal detector again, it's going to
And I'll
take
leave a
forever.
water bottle. That's absolutely predictable. Oh, that was.
At least it wasn't my knee.
That wasn't your knee.
No, that would have been bad. What?
I think that was to you.
Yeah.
Not me.
Oh, I guess. Yeah. Didn't she pray last time? Whatever.
How are you guys?
Stephanie, happy New Year. Oh, yeah. Is somebody from KED? Oh, yeah, I did see.
Yeah, Will, I think Will.
Okay. Chair.
Let me ask Will if he's got that and if he's facilitating.
Hopefully he is. I can help if you want, but I don't.
Just sure I'm going to go to the bathroom. Because it's not high enough. You
No,
feel like
this is-
little kids.
Go up.
Yeah, it's better. This is yes, Will has everything.
Oh, good.
So, I'm sorry.
He's got a beard. Yeah.
In the community development.
Yeah, and he's on the picture here. Yeah.
So Will, I can't get on. Thank you. Oh, you have
Good evening. How are you?
Didn't go to the bathroom. I hope it. Amy. Oh.
Councilmember Barentine.
I'm not gonna listen to you.
Would you tap her and tell her we're ready to start?
Yeah.
We're ready to start. We're ready to start. We're ready to start.
Doesn't matter what you say.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
It's not broken. Okay, good. That's good.
Oops. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting on January the 7th. It's now 7:10. We'll call to order. We'll have an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. Please stand if you're able.
Our Heavenly Father, help us to say what we think with depth and clarity, to listen to the thoughts of others with humility and open-mindedness, and to bring together our diversity of viewpoints in such a way as to increase the common good. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please take roll?
Yes, ma'am. Member Sierra.
Present.
Member Barentine.
present.
Member Cuesta.
Present.
Member Martinez. Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Present.
Member Wink.
Present.
Mayor Olson.
Present.
6 present, 1 absent, the 1 absent being Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. And I want to make note that Councilwoman Martinez will be coming in just a bit late. She's involved in a process in another room here. So when that happens, the clerk will make note of that in the minutes. Next on our agenda item is Agenda 5, consideration of minutes of the previous session. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of December 17th, 2018.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting on December 17th, 2018.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Any concerns? Seeing none, please vote to approve.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes.
Did it show up there? Mm-hmm. It did. All right. Went really quick. Consideration of minutes of the special City Council meeting of December 16th is the next item for approval. Could I have a motion to approve these minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of the special City Council meeting on December 18th, 2018.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
All right. Give it to Councilmember Sierra.
Thank you.
No comments? Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. Next is recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday, the 5 p.m. prior to the meeting. Through the City Clerk's office, only those who meet this deadline can speak in this section. This is an opportunity for the public to address City Council. There's an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Written materials for presentation to Council may be submitted to the City Clerk as a speaker approaches the podium, and a USB port is available upon presentation. Our first item up is actually a little different. It's the Keep Englewood Beautiful Committee, and they're going to present to give out awards for the holiday lighting contest. So I think we have one of our staff members from KEB, who is liaison to KEB. If you could introduce yourself to everyone, and then we'll be glad to help in any way.
My name is Will Charles. I am in the Community Development Department as well as the liaison for Keep Englewood Beautiful. I also have a couple members of KEB with us. If you guys just want to post up in the first row, I think that'd be good. So we have some awards to give out for the holiday lighting that we voted on December 11th. So I'll go ahead and just go through them, and then if anybody is here to accept their award, the members from KEB will be happy to hand them out to them.
Thank you.
All right, so in third place, Nancy Foster. Second place was the Walcotts, Mike, Megan, Maddie, and Macy. Our first place award went to Ron and Melanie Kloewer. All right, next is to Parker Johnson for our best new entry this year. Next up is David LeMay for our most energy efficient house. And then we had a couple of honorable mentions. First is Dan and Peggy Stevens. Next is Doug Haas. Next goes to Cindy Krieger, Bones Herberg, and Eric and Jeremy Johnson. And then finally, our last honorable mention goes to a business that applied for Cabinet Makers of America.
Oh, there's someone here.
Someone coming.
And that is all of our awards.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who did submit and participated, and those that are at home. Maybe they're taking their lights down, but thank you. Thank you for doing this.
I had a question about the lighting. Excuse me.
Councilmember Barentine, could you be recognized first? Push your button. Okay, thank you.
I am so sorry, Mayor. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilmember Barentine.
Next year, or are we going to be putting these into the Citizen, the awards, or at least on the website?
We had a map of the people who applied after the awards. We usually go ahead and post who won. We like to keep the winners secret until the meeting, obviously, just so it can be presented in front. We try to get the meeting before the holidays. It's just the last 2 years, it's kind of been a busy time for just scheduling wise. But yeah, we will post the winner on a map after the meeting today.
Where is that posted at?
It's posted on the KEB's page.
Okay, so they'll be posted, and you're working on, could you give a little explanation for the new awards that were done?
Sure. So,
no, I meant on your page, if you would just give a little bit.
Tonight.
I don't want to take up your time tonight, but some of the new ones you did, I'd like just a little bit more information on what those were, if you would. Thank you very much. Thanks for that work on it.
Thank you very much, and thanks to KEB. Next up is J.J. Maggiata, an Englewood resident, here to address council. No topic given. Is Mr. Maggiata here? Don't believe he is. Next is Jessica Dory, an Englewood resident, here to address council regarding Friends of Englewood Parks.
Hello, Council. I'm Jessica Dory. I live at 2117 East Dartmouth Circle in Englewood. I'm here for Friends of Englewood Parks. We've been come before you a few times now since this summer. We are concerned about the parks needing more funding. A lot of the parks are somewhat in disrepair. They need new playground equipment. And the question, as we've researched, has come to be just, there's not enough money for it, but when and how does that happen? I think we have, we've asked City Council to task the Parks and Rec Department with researching our options. And I think there was something that was maybe going to happen about that, but we haven't heard any news back. We would like to ask City Council to put on the ballot for the upcoming year some sort of measure after Parks and Recs has a chance to look into what would make the most sense, a bond, a sales tax, a mill levy, to put that to the voters of Englewood to see if they support more funding for the parks. And I think according to the most recent master plan done by the parks, there's a lot of needs and there's not a lot of funds. And so I've lived in the neighborhood for 8 years. I have a 12-year-old. I have 2 small children. I think I'm frustrated that the parks aren't in bed. I think that they're maintained well. I think the parks that have been redone, like Duncan Park, are a good model of what could be. But when I look at the park that we live by, Romans Park, and I see that it needs so much. And I felt the whole time I lived there, surely Englewood's going to get to this park. And I could, name 5 Denver parks I would rather go to than my neighborhood park. And I really think that that's kind of shameful for Englewood. And so I would ask the members of council who are not feeling like this is important or don't want to raise taxes. Nobody likes to pay more, but at the same time, I think the parks are the face of our neighborhood. They're the community centers of our neighborhood. They're really important to people like me, to moms, to everybody in all stages of life to get exercise. So I guess we're here again. We would really, we're asking council to put some sort of measure based on what makes the most sense, to propose it to the voters and to let the citizens of Englewood decide if they think that parks are important and worth maintaining and updating. I think that is what democracy is for, and that putting that to the voters would be really helpful. If we have to, we will try to get the 1,000 signatures that we need, but that puts a big thing on us, and I think that there's a proven need that the parks need more money. So I don't see, where does that, I guess what would be the plan otherwise? If we're not going to, where's the money going to come from? I think that it needs to come from somewhere. Denver does it, Centennial, Little, South Suburban, all those voters have prioritized their parks. And I think that the citizens of Englewood deserve a chance to say if they feel the same. Again, I thank you all for the work that you do. I hope that you'll consider Englewood Parks and some sort of ballot measure, and really looking into that, because I think there's a real need. And that's all I guess I have to say. Oh, while I'm up here, I would like to say that I am also in support of the ADUs. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I believe there's a switch, and who's next? Mr. Jerry Walker would like to go next, and then after that, Ms. Cohen Dickerson. Is that not correct? Or
I don't believe Mr. Walker is here.
Okay, so Councilmember, or yes, Ms. Dickerson is next then, and I don't believe Mr. Walker's in the room.
Cian Dickerson, 2835 South Pennsylvania Street, Englewood, Colorado. The ADU ordinance that's coming before you tonight was amended after tabling and public hearing. Very little was said about the ordinance itself. I was left with the disturbing conclusion that only 3 of you had actually read that ordinance or knew anything at all about it. And at the public hearing, there was little public support and slightly more opposition, though no facts or reasons or any knowledge of the ordinance was evident in the support. I, along with many, were left with many questions and confusion. The majority decision of council was to try ADUs out on 2 MU zones to work out the kinks, because the R1C zoning is mostly single-family residential, and the R2 zones were already high density with the prevalence of scrape-offs and 80% lot coverage for duplexes and triplexes. There are few ADUs possible. Now, without a public hearing, based solely on the alleged email and phone conversations to one of you, outside of a public hearing, a council member said, I made a mistake in voting for it because citizens have told me so. And then she offers a new amendment. Really, Council Member Wink? How about you made a big mistake saying you made a big mistake? Or are you going to change your mind again without a public hearing or any knowledge of the ordinance in question? Does it matter to you or any of you that a member of the P&Z rents out 5 bedrooms of his house in violation of current ordinances? Does it matter to you that a property owner told you publicly about the violation of the zoning regulations by a neighbor, and community development approved the no permit building less than 3 feet from his property line? Does it matter the conflict of interest on P&Z board and by staff, and another council member stating publicly he wants an ADU as a reason to support your thoughtless amendment? Does it matter to any of you that staff has a record of allowing blatant violations of zoning regulations in building by investors and developers? Citizens who try to follow the regulations get shafted. Given the available evidence of error, mistakes, and allowed violations, if not actual malfeasance by staff, and conflict of interest on many levels, the probability of this ADU issue going terribly wrong is increasing, and neighborhoods will be destroyed. Do not approve this. Member Wink, this is a good time to correct one of your many mistakes. Vote against this ordinance. Where is the transparency? Where is the thought and the facts, or any analysis? I have been looking into the ordinance, and I have to agree with Member Cuesta. There is no enforcement possible in it. I would add a lot of potential for abuse and no possibility for enforcement, and a high likelihood of even more problems legally as well as benefit only to developers and investors. For example, I know of several ways corporations, businesses, and developers can buy, own properties, and build ADUs regardless of any restrictions, and no ordinance can stop them. I am convinced staff has pushed this to get developers to do ADUs, increasing density and thereby rezoning and destroying neighborhoods, especially in District 3. Affordable housing? No. The cost will be prohibitive. Rents will have to cover the cost, and at a minimum of $300 per square foot, which is the going rate right now, the rents will not be affordable, and there will be increased likelihood of Airbnb, already rampant in our zones, and for short-term rentals. Not one reason for allowing these in Englewood, especially the R1C district, hold water, are valid. This is a bad ordinance and very full of holes. If anyone has an urgent need for housing for relatives, add on to the main house. It will be cheaper. Have you learned nothing from the mistakes of Alta Cherry Hills, Broadway Acoma Lofts, Traditions, or the Foundry? How much affordable housing did the lofts accomplish? None that I know of. Any at all? No. Look at this ordinance closer. Better yet, start over. Do not compound your many, many mistakes by approving this.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Jerry Walker. I don't believe he's in the room. So we'll move on to Mr. Mike Jones here as to speak about our ADUs and Englewood resident.
Open here. Good evening, Council, and Happy New Year. We are starting off the new year, and obviously a lot of discussion with regards to ADUs. Mike Jones, 4851 South Pennsylvania Street. There have been a lot of discussions over the last few years with regards to ADUs, and this discussion has morphed from simple structures built on specific properties with ownership and occupancy by family members, and a lot of that is with regards to the argument that people can't afford to live in Englewood anymore. And we see this problem throughout the metro area. A lot of this initially has been built on the premise that our children can no longer afford to live in Englewood. This has morphed over the last couple of years to where we are today, and it has kind of opened up to allowing the camel's nose under the tent, if you will, which is what I had a discussion with development about 2 years ago. And at that point, they discussed the fact that really there is no way to, to regulate and to enforce any of the code. And part of the issue that was brought up by myself was it was told to me that this would have to be self-regulated and it would have to be regulated by neighbors, which is very difficult and onerous at best. We have a code enforcement system in Englewood that is not proactive, it is reactive. So it, in my mind, is not a recipe for success, a recipe for disaster. One of the things that, as I've been thinking about this over the last few months, that has concerned me is with regards to the fact that I haven't seen any studies on what this potentially could do as far as our infrastructure in Englewood, with regards to the utilities, with regards to water, with regards to sewer, with regards to increased traffic. What studies have been done by you as council or by any of the organizations within our city? I haven't seen anything. It's been rather quiet with regards to having public input to this other than coming before you at council. There have been a lot of changes over the last 2 years with regards to what the ordinance is going to look like. Every time I see new documentation on the ordinance, it's different. It's not what it was 2 years ago. It's not what it was 6 months ago. So I don't know how we are moving forward without input on these major changes that are occurring. We're told that the city can't enforce the code. We're told that infrastructure in our city is lacking at best as it stands now. Just within the last week, there were 2 water main breaks within 4 blocks of my home. I'm told that there actually were 2 others within the city during the past week as well. We know there were previous water main breaks within the city over the past month or 2. So our infrastructure is suffering as it stands already. What studies have been done to see what the impact of increased people living in our city as a result of EDUs is going to do to our infrastructure? Again, I haven't seen anything. I would like to see something. I'm told that not many will get built, so don't worry about it. It's only a handful that might get built in the city, okay? Give me a study on what a 5% increase on our infrastructure is going to do to the infrastructure. We're still reeling from the flood from last year, and now we're moving forward on something that, in all honesty, I don't know is even necessary. I put some maps up here. I took a look at what the city of Denver is doing with regards to ADUs. 2010, the city of Denver council proposed bringing ADUs back into the city. Only 10% of the city neighborhoods in Denver allow ADUs at this point. That's 10%. Neighborhoods have to opt in to allow ADUs in Denver. It is not widely a widely used ordinance by any of these neighborhoods. A lot of them have opted out. The other thing that I want to point to you as well, this is another map. You see all of the orange, the yellow, gray. These are areas where ADUs are allowed in Denver right now. Those are Denver neighborhoods. You can see how much of Denver does not have ADUs in it at this point. And I'll close up with saying the orange and the yellow are rezoning. Denver rezones when they allow ADUs.
Your time is up, Mr. Jones.
Use, the yellow is PDU. That's
Thank you very much.
Rezoning is.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Sean Herbert, an Englewood resident who also will address council regarding ADUs.
Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Sean Herbert. I reside at 3323 South Ogden, and I'm here for hopefully the approval of Ordinance CB2 on second reading. And, just going back to some of the things that have morphed, it seems like all the opposition to ADUs seems more concerned with bigger construction I don't see how an incremental ADU is going to compare to an apartment building going up across from say Cochino Tacos has a new apartment complex going in that the billiards look really nice. It's got a fancy pool. But think of all the stress and wear and tear on the infrastructure for that. We have an issue with the infrastructure like Denver. It's wearing out. But I don't think we can put ADUs in the category that the incremental ADU is really going to stress an already stressed water system. I think it just goes deeper, and we just need to address the water, the infrastructure with that. Going back to a lot of the arguments I hear for and against, it deals with scarcity. And I think our own Planning and Zoning Commission, they went to school for this. They have I think one of the planners is a planner too, which tells me he was probably hired in as a planner one or a planner or maybe both, or hired from the outside because of his experience. And he's the only, John is the only planner that I've dealt with on email, but these people came through with this proposal, and it does have criteria. These are not going to be more than 26 feet high. I hear a 3-foot setback earlier, but these are going to have 5 foot. These are just going to be smaller structures. They're not going to double people's utility bills next door. We do have dirt alleys. Mine was graded this week, or last week, thank you. And they go up the alley slow, but it's dirt, and there was not a lot of dust. It wasn't windy that day. So, and as I go down the alley to and from my garage to work, I'm older, so I'm cautious, but I'm not kicking up a ton of dust. So I think the ADUs are not going to take a long time to build compared to bigger construction. Denver had I think it was in the Rhino District on the news tonight, they had something going on with somebody complaining about construction not cleaning up, and they actually went in and compared it to the permit, and the city had to come out and fine them. And that's something I look forward to happening, not having people fined or anything, but we can mitigate some of the dust and stuff, but that's for bigger projects. I don't think any of the arguments I've heard against ADUs are pertaining to ADUs. I think they're cross-confused with bigger construction. And that's about all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. And the next is Mr. Stephen Muth, an Englewood resident, who will address City Council regarding ADUs.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. First of all,
Could you state your address too? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Stephen Muth at 2880 South Lincoln Street. First of all, I'd like to applaud your vote last meeting. I think that ADUs are definitely needed in the city of Englewood. I cannot thank you enough for listening to the Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you, Cheryl, for changing your mind, or at least, in my opinion, voting the right direction. So I applaud you for that and doing what you felt was right for the community. I'm sure you've taken heat for that. First of all, I'd like to say it's, I understand everyone's got an opinion, but I think the people that are opposing ADUs don't quite understand the implications from adding ADUs. I think, like medical marijuana currently is legal, the true difference is the city and the government receives revenue. Marijuana was smoked for the past 100 years here in Denver, period. If ADUs do not pass, people like the parks and recreation will not receive the funds that I'm prepared to give them through my ADU. And my ADU is needed for living space for my son. What they're talking about, A, B, and whatever, I don't even know. I hear it's some sort of rental, vacation thing. But if that's the case, why not have people vacation in Englewood? It's a beautiful city. I think another thing that these people don't understand is what happens if ADUs aren't approved, that is our situation. We can right this second build a substantial storage area, and who's to know we're going to let my son live in it or anyone else, which also creates more havoc on the enforcement department. So what this does is it brings everything out in the open and brings the revenue out in the open. It brings everything out in the open. Another thing I want to point out is if we were to build this storage unit, because of the height restrictions, we would have a flat roof and basically have a junkyard at our house, which all of our neighbors are opposed to. Currently, we have on plans a design to build a beautiful home and a beautiful ADU, which will enhance the area's value substantially. And that's what I think these people don't understand, is that without the ADUs, it's actually going to decrease the value and increase squatters or whatever they're concerned about. Couple other things I'd like to request of the council and mayor. I happen to own an urban lot, and my hope is that you approve the ADUs today, and I understand that you're requesting a study with the urban law, or with the preservation area in Englewood for ADUs, and I would hope that you would include in that study for urban lots, because currently I still have, even if you pass the ADUs, I still have no right to build because I have this urban lot. Unfortunately, when the city did their study, they did not, they just flat out forgot about the urban lot group, which is a very substantial group. So my only request today, besides, of course, passing ADUs, is to request just the department to review and study ADUs for urban lots, and to give a recommendation to you, which, is all I'm asking for right now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Martin Frazier, also an Englewood resident, who is going to address council regarding ADUs.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Russell, council members. Nice to see you again. I want to commend the affirmative vote last time on the ADUs. It was great. I think it's really needed in the city. I like the fact that R1Z zoning is actually back in it. It's good to go there. What I brought tonight was a council communication that basically goes over planning and zoning's, I forgot, 3744 South Bannock Street.
I forgot to, thank you.
Sorry. This basically is council communication. It goes over basically the CB2 Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance, everything that Mike Jones was sitting there saying that we didn't have any information on. It's pretty much got everything we need in it as far as all the stuff that's on it. What I want to address tonight is one thing that Mayor Russell brought us our attention last time, was the fact that the infrastructure issue, water, sewer, things like that. Well, I'm looking at this here, and it basically says that according to the information here, we have a population of 60,000. Let me get started on here. This is coming from the council communication. It says, I'll start from the beginning. There are no significant financial impacts to the city associated with the adoption of an ADU ordinance. Local street and utility infrastructure are already in place. Utilities have been designed to accommodate a population of 60,000 based on the population projections at the time of the adoption of the City of Englewood, Colorado Comprehensive Investigation of the Municipal Water System. This document served as the blueprint for planning and development of the city's water system. The city's water treatment plant has a capacity of 28 million gallons per day, while the current maximum usage is 12 million gallons per day. Wastewater treatment plant has a capacity of 50 million gallons per day, while the current maximum usage is 23 million gallons today. The water and wastewater figures are provided by Tom Brennan, Director of Utilities. Mr. Brennan confirmed that new ADU development will not have a significant impact on the water and wastewater delivery systems. I think Tom's here tonight to talk about this 7% increase on the water bill, so if you got questions, maybe check in with him. Again, thank you for the affirmative vote last time. And R1C, I appreciate it very much. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Doug Cohn, an Englewood resident, here to address the council regarding historic preservation.
Good evening. Doug Cohn, 3051 South Marion Street. One of my neighbors gave me a letter from the, I think, the late 1950s. And I'm going to read the letter to you. And I kind of hope that you'll have the same kind of response that I had. Greetings, friends. There's always been a need to consider the handicapped person for employment, but recently it's become of national importance. From our president down, we all agree that the handicapped person deserves a place in our economy. Here is an opportunity for you, every housewife, to employ one handicapped person. I'm a professional tool dresser, but I am crippled and must work from home from my wheelchair. I sharpen all kinds of household tools. Please look around your home and see how many articles you can find that need sharpening. Jot them down on the reverse side of this letter and pass them on to your friends, neighbors, to the people on your block, across the street, the alley. And in passing, if any one of you is willing to bring this work to me, please sign the reverse of the side of this when the sheet is filled out and return it to the person willing to bring the work to me. This person will then call on you, picking up and delivering the work after I've sharpened it. Since the public bus service passes my house, this can be done by anyone, with or without a car. It has always been my policy, even before I was disabled, when there was illness in a home, unemployment, or lack of funds for any reason, to employ my service without charge. I am happy indeed to continue this policy by doing this work free for up to 20% of the total amount of the work brought to me. I have the same joy as you in doing things for others in need, and I count it a pleasure and an opportunity, remembering that unless you help me in this work program, I remain idle and useless and my disability real. Yet, with this little assistance, I am again productive. In an economic sense, you will have made my disability of no effect. During the past 10 years, I've been in a wheelchair, and it's been often expedient that I accept assistance. For this assistance, I'm sincerely grateful. But now that I am able to work some, I think it behooves me to make every effort to be self-sustaining. Just think, if only 100 people will bring this work to me each year, I will have employment. Please, won't you be one of them? This kind of charity, I think, is correct. It expresses your love, yet it does not destroy my dignity. It helps me to help myself. In this, I can have humble pride, and you will share this with me because you will know that without your help, I will remain idle. Sincerely yours, Thomas Gwynn. He lived on Jason Street in the 1950s, as near as I can tell. I love that. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Next up is agenda item 7, which is unscheduled public. Yes.
I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Margiotta did come into the meeting. I didn't know.
All right.
What you wanted to do procedurally.
Mr. Margiotta is here, so we'll let him speak. Please state your name and your address of residence.
Englewood Environmental Foundation is a 501c3 private corporation and actually found out it was registered as an integral part of the city, they have to release their financials now. We wouldn't do it for 16 years. We found out the 2019 budget is not a balanced budget and is off by 10 to 15%, yet they approved it. I've also found out that the city manager broke city laws by spending $236,000 of emergency funds on a computer system without authority. Instead, the response has been to try and hide and use employees and other childish ignorance to go on the defensive to make false accusations, trying to devalue the information that are written. As a citizen coming before council so far, I've received a bucket of human feces at my doorstep. I have been repeatedly harassed by the police department and city employees. I have been followed, had false charges filed against me for made-up crimes, where there is no witnesses and no documented proof, but they want to make sure that I keep spending money on attorneys' fees. I've even gotten a ticket for having a cup of coffee without a license. To date, I've been called a liar, criminal, a goon, and probably more things than I can probably even remember. Why is all this? Because if they can try to make me out to be the bad guy and sway your thinking as citizens, they win. Nothing gets exposed. The real issue at hand here is the incompetence of past administrations and the false ego of the mayor who does not want to expose the incompetence and financial responsibility of the city and the city employees. And even though the city's procedure manual calls out for illegal activities, our illustrious mayor and employees collude and condone to hide them. I don't want to be here doing this. I have many other things to do. But I do it for you, the citizens of England. I bring this information forward. Let me give you a little of the latest information I want to cover. Right now, the city has about $50 million in reserves that we have in investment accounts. So far, the city's lost $8 million in their business investments. That was in last year. These are horrible business people. Every business deal that I've looked at has been upside down. It's like giving away 1/5 of our city building here to the Museum of Outdoor Arts, costing us almost $1 million a year. And when you look at the buildings that each of us realize we lease that to 24-Hour Fitness and their partners for 75 years for $644 a month, or the credit union upstairs that pays $155 a month. Now you need to understand they don't pay utilities, no trash, no security, no parking, no janitorial, nothing more. All of this is being subsidized by you and me, the citizens of England. So I implore the city council to stand up tonight before the people of England. That's right, Sierra, Martinez, Russell, Olson, Wink, Barentine, Weston. Stand up tonight before God and the citizens of Englewood and pledge that you're doing everything in your power to make sure the city is doing everything it can to have oversight and financial responsibility moving forward, and that you will hold those accountable that have broken our bidding laws. I bet that only 2 council members will stand up tonight and pledge to the people, the citizens of Englewood. With that said, citizens of Englewood, I stand up before you. I will continue to hold the City of Englewood Council, the City of Englewood City Council, the current administration, the staff, accountable for their financial well-being of the city. I plan on spending 2019 to better myself, my community, and now it's time for all of us to make sure we hold them responsible. Thank you, citizens of Englewood. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Margiotta. We'll move on to agenda item 7 is recognition of unscheduled public comment. And this section, speakers have signed up ahead of time here at the beginning of the meeting. This is an opportunity for the public to address City Council. There's an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation in 3 minutes. Time for unscheduled public comment may be limited to 45 minutes. And if limited, shall be continued after the general discussion. And I will keep track of it tonight because we have quite a few. Written materials can be presented to the city clerk here, and a USB port is available for public presentation. First up tonight is Mr. Lester Myers. Please come up, state your name and address, and it's about apartments.
Hey, good evening, Council, and Happy New Year. I'm Lester Myers from 4195 South Clarkson Street here in Englewood, and I've been a resident here now for 25 years. In the last few years, it just seems like we're really going downhill with all these rental properties and stuff that are coming into the Englewood area. We've got one house just a block from us where I live there that I counted 18 people go into that house in one day, and they stayed there overnight, which the house is not equipped for fire extinguishers or sprinkler systems or anything of that nature. And I've talked to the police about it, and they mentioned that they can't do nothing because there's no ordinance saying that they can't do that at this time. And also all these apartments that are being built, it's just attracting more. It seems like we've had more problems with thefts and burglaries and car thefts and cars being broken into in the last couple of years now. They're getting kind of scary. I'm getting to the point where I wish I could move, but unfortunately I can't at this time. I would like for the council to take this all into consideration, especially when these apartments are being built and stuff, to make sure that there's parking available for all the people that are going to be staying at these apartments or whatever, Airbnbs or whatever. I don't like the Airbnbs being in the neighborhood to begin with, because we're not in the habit of having a hotel next door to us and these people coming and going as they want to. I went over and tried to talk to these individuals one day there when they was having a wild party, vulgar language and everything else with neighbor kids in the area. They hear everything that was going on, and they just tell me to go get lost or whatever. And minor, I use better terminology, I guess, but it's just I would appreciate any assistance and help that we could get with the restrictions on these apartments being built and locations of them. I think it should be something for the neighborhood to vote on or whatever, if they're going to allow an apartment to be built into a certain neighborhood. I think they should be brought to council or whatever, brought to and a vote with people in the neighborhood there. Would be nice also. Several neighbors called. I had one neighbor call just a couple months ago complaining about all the marijuana smoke coming from this Airbnb. And he said he was getting high in his house, just sitting there a couple houses down from where they live. But thank you. I appreciate any consideration, any help we can get with these problems we've been having with these apartments and parking and everything else in the neighborhood. I've had people parking in my driveway where I couldn't even get in my garage one night. I had to go over to the house and have them move their car. And so, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cuesta.
Mr. Myers? Mr. Myers? Sir? Could you repeat your address for me one more time, sir?
Pardon me?
Your address. Could you repeat your address for me one more time?
4195 South Clarkson Street.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Next up is Mr. Robert Regan, I believe.
My name is Robert Regan. I live at 3429 South Grant Street since 1999, and prior to that I lived on 580 Penwood Circle from 94 to 99. Ever since, I also wanted to thank you for listening and for your long hours. I know 2 weeks ago I believe you didn't get out to 12:30, and that's a real long night, but I appreciate you a lot. Despite some comments about us who want to keep an eye on ADUs, more buildings, stuff like that. I personally am well aware of what's going on and informed and have been for many, many years. So a lot of us that have been dealing with this are actually well informed and hit the streets a lot. Couple things since I was last here. Over the weekend, the apartment building across the street from me houses some nice people. They're okay, but they don't work. What they do is they go down to the Safeway where there's a lot of people hanging out. They bring these transients or homeless type people back to their apartments usually and do whatever. Something erupted over the weekend, 5 police cars. A guy that was from Safeway was staying somewhere in the apartment building that he wasn't supposed to, and was insulting the elderly manager there, calling her names. 2 weeks before that, on on Saturday as well. I was sitting at my house, and unbeknownst to me, someone's running through my front yard from my backyard. I go out and yell something to him, and he keeps running to the apartment building. Englewood Police has been awesome. They tell me all the time, call me anytime. Mayor Olson's told me that as well. If I have any issue, call them no matter what. I did. And what had happened was a guy had stole something at King Soopers, got into an altercation with the cop, and that's how he ended up running through my property, and I think they ended up catching him. So that was, I don't know if he was homeless for sure, but there seems to be a lot more crime going on these last couple of years. Where I live, too, is Englewood's oldest block. We do have an apartment building there. We do have a duplex. We do have 2 businesses on there. It's working fine. We like it the way it is. Behind me, too, I've spoke about the condos that have been there for a long time. Once again, I had another problem with my neighbor driving on my driveway, like they continuously do. And that's going to continue to happen if we keep putting ADUs everywhere for the people behind them. But thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you all very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up is Ms. Laura Jones, here to speak about ADUs.
Hi, I'm Laura Jones, 3106 South Sherman Street. And thank you for your time today, and thank you for all the comments revolving ADUs. We purchased our home in 2013. Like a lot of the homes in Englewood, it was built in 1920s. The main structure has been updated, but the garage looks terrible and is really in disrepair. So we knew when we bought the home, it was something that we wanted to make look nicer and be usable. Since 2013, I've attended a lot of the planning and zoning commissions, open houses, public comments. I think the city has done a really great job of gathering information to figure out, has this worked for other cities, not just within Colorado, but also outside of Colorado? So I commend the team for that. My frustration has just been on the fact that I don't know when this started. I know that when we purchased our property in 2013, it was already on the table. I feel like we've hit a point of analysis paralysis. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but we've just been looking at this for way too long. We actually had hired a contractor to repair our garage, but also build kind of like a mother-in-law suite, ADU style. When they went to get the permit, they were told by the city, because this was on the table, we were not allowed to go another avenue. We saw that happen on Logan Street, which I know everyone's aware of. That was part of a total rezone because of the church that sold. But for residents like myself, you may or may not be aware, we've basically been on hold for years because there has been no decision. So I was really excited to hear that you guys moved forward last meeting, and I'm hoping that the approval goes through today. Since that initial thought and today, prices have gone up dramatically. So I can't tell you for sure whether or not we're going to even build an ADU, but it's really important for me and our money to know what our options are. So we've done nothing until there's a decision. I'm sure there's lots of other homeowners in the same position. As far as the water main breaks, I think it was great that somebody else brought up all the research that's been done. I would also say that everything that I've seen in the news with the recent water main breaks in and around Denver are a result of old infrastructure, not necessarily the growth. So just please take that into consideration and not be scared from that one topic. So again, I just urge you to approve the ADUs. I think they really would benefit our community, and I hope that moving forward we can make a decision so that we're not stuck waiting. Similarly, I'm a member of the Friends of Englewood Parks.
You'll have to finish up in the next couple seconds.
I would just say that The master plan back to 2006 said that our parks are in disrepair, and we still don't have a plan. So
thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Next up is Gail Ogden. Here to, not sure what, there's no topic given. Please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Gail Ogden, 4170 South Cherokee Street. In 1951, my parents purchased a new build in the 4100 block of Cherokee. They watched as other homes were built around them and the city grow. In 1960, prior to child number 4, they moved across the street where the floor plan gave them access to the basement inside the home. We watched as Hawthorne School on Oxford become Hawthorne Apartments, the empty lots behind our home where we played as children become the Englewood School Administration and Service Center. Cinderella City built and then torn down. My family has been in the same neighborhood for 68 years. 3 of my parents' children have their own home in the same neighborhood, where most of these homes are under 1,000 square feet with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. These homes will someday be replaced with larger homes or multi-units as change happens. Englewood's Planning and Zoning Commission has done a phenomenal job on CB2. For those council members that are going to vote against CB2, I wish they could provide facts and forego the fear and anger we hear regarding the what-ifs. Englewood residents should be given this opportunity. What I say is not going to change the mind of any individual. With that, I want to thank Council Members Wink, Martinez, Sierra, and Mayor Wilson for being the progressive thinkers for Englewood families. I am in District 3, and I am for CB2. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Tim Brown, here to speak about tax. State your name and your residence.
Yes, I'm Timothy Brown. I own Trees Dispensary at 5005 South Federal Boulevard.
I apologize. I can't hear him.
Could you do it again? You can pull it up, too.
No problem.
Yeah, there you go.
Tim Brown, and I own Trees Dispensary at 5005 South Federal Boulevard. So I put tax, it's specifically about Council Bill 50 and 51, which is a marijuana excise tax increase. So I just wanted to come here and present some facts and kind of have a few moments to talk to council about it. So I'm going to just pull up some notes. First, I'd like to start off by saying that Trees Dispensary has provided 1.67% of the entire budget of the city of Englewood for 2018. That's number one. We've contributed $432,964.54. We almost contribute about 61 times more than the average business in Englewood. Trees has made up 4.45% of the tax revenue January through October for 2018. We've also made all of our tax payments in full and on time every time. So I'm here because there's a tax increase going on that I also wrote. So I'm the person that drafted ballot, I think it's called Ballot Issue 300. In there, I gave the council the ability to raise the tax if they saw fit to raise the tax. So what's happened now is that council has interpreted the tax as something that goes up automatically, which is not the case. So the fact that the tax got put into the budget, we're still not even sure is legally proper currently, and we're looking into it. But for the time being, my reason to be here tonight is ask you to table the vote and please talk to the people that have to do with these taxes, because just raising taxes does not mean a net gain for the city. It doesn't. At the time we wrote this ordinance, there was no dispensaries in the city of Sheridan. Now I have a dispensary 2,200 feet from my location, right, which is in the middle of building its clientele, building up its business. So just raising the tax does not mean the city of Englewood will make more money. And all I'm here to do to ask is to table the vote. I don't know what the right way to go is. I don't. All I'm asking is that I get a chance to sit down, go over the statistics. All of those statistics I just named off are from englewood.gov. So those aren't things I made up. And I'm here to ask you and beg you and implore you to table the vote until you get input from members like me, maybe people that are opposed to me, but take input. Don't just pass a tax blindly. You should talk to the folks that know about it. We're going to do $913,000 this month, and if you pass the tax, it's possible next month I do $500, right? So if you take that into consideration, the tax increase might cost the city of Englewood money, right? And I'm not saying that I'm right. I don't know. All I'm asking is that you sit down like a professional counsel. You talk to the people that know about this, and you take it into consideration, and you make an educated decision instead of a blind vote. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Cynthia Searfoss, here to speak about ADUs.
Cynthia Searfoss, 3297 South Downing Street. Good evening. People are talking tonight about facts, and Mr. Verbal was kind enough to provide me with some facts, so I have some statistics for you. There are 1,297 single-family residences in R2B, and the number of people interested in building ATUs in R2B represent 1.2% of the population of that district. For R2A, there are 515 residential residences, and the number of people who verbal reported interested in ADUs are 2, and that represents 0.03% of the residences. So now for my area, R1C, we have 4,157 residential residences, and according to Mr. Verbal's information, there are 58 households interested in building ADUs, which represents 1.3% of the total residences in R1C. So you are considering putting through the ADU code for 1.3% people in R1C, 0.03% in R2A, and 0.12% in R2B, and of the total voting people that voted in the last election for City Council, according to your study session numbers from December 16th, 2.7% of the total voting population in the City of Englewood. So this does not seem to be something the majority of even the voting citizens of Englewood want. And if you compare it to the complete population of the City of Englewood, estimating at 35,000, it's 0.004% of our total population of the City of Englewood interested in ADUs. So I think that the idea that Mr. Jones spoke about, neighborhoods opting into the ADU experiment, maybe that would be a better option for the City of Englewood, since so few of us have come forward and either said that they want it or said that they don't want it, because the total number of people that came to an ADU meeting is 152 individuals out of the total 35,000. So that's really not representative of our entire population here in Englewood. Now, to the issue at hand, the current ADU statute that they have put through.
Ms. Searfoss,
Sorry. But thank you.
You can certainly submit whatever you've written, but thank you.
I have a question.
Member Barentine has a question for Ms. Searfoss.
Yeah.
In the information that you were provided, did that already include the 180 ADUs that already exist in the city?
No, it didn't. That's just the people that are proposing that they want to build them.
Okay. Of that number, was it included the 280 properties that 2 years ago were made into developable properties by becoming urban lots? Was that included in there as well?
Mr. Verbal didn't tell me. He just gave me a total.
All right. I'd appreciate having that information as well, but if you could find out whether those were included or not.
You'd have to ask Mr. Verbal. He didn't tell me.
Maybe.
Thank you.
You seem to have a working relationship with them, so if you'd find out, I'd
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. The next up is Ms. Vicki Hoffman here to speak about long-term investments. Please state your name and residence.
Vicki Hoffman, owner of 4630 South Bannock. Tonight I am here to discuss the claim by the city and council that continues to state the city does not have enough money to fix the infrastructure. I am here to tell everyone this is totally false. The city currently has $58 million in long-term investments. Yes, $58 million in cash. Let that sink in. Money that could be utilized to start fixing the infrastructure that claimed the life of Rachel Haber. $58 million that is managed by North America LLC. From January 2018 to November 2018, this $58 million that is taxpayer dollars has so far exceeded $8 million in losses this year alone. Yes, $8 million. Monthly losses are between $600,000 and $800,000 a month. Long-term investments should be making money, especially with the stock market that has continued to soar in the last year and a half. Even if the city invested this money in a low-risk bank account, this money would generate $1.2 million per year in gains. What is necessary? It is time for council to understand that raising fees are not the solution. What is necessary is to remove North America and find an investment firm who will ensure this money earns gains, not losses. The accountability lies with City Council, not the city manager, not the finance department, but you. City Council, I implore you to put an immediate stop to this matter. Englewood is facing a catastrophic failure of infrastructure. 6 main water line breaks in 1 week. Another water main break today at Quincy and Elati. But yet council continues to allow more and more redevelopment within the city, putting added stress on a system that is not maintained, not upgraded, and could potentially cause more deaths and property losses. Monsoon season is just around the corner. The City of Englewood's employees work for you, which in turn, you work for the citizens. Stop the madness of rubber stamping every department's request for money. It is deplorable that a city is gambling away $8 million on poor investment strategies. So, fellow citizens, please remember we have $58 million that could be used towards the betterment of the city and its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Sharon Coleman, I believe, or I'm not sure. Is that right? No, it's okay.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Sharon Coleman, and I live at 2901 South Ogden Street, and I'm happy to see you again. I wanted to thank you for your affirmative vote last meeting to put R1C back into the ADU pool there, because that's where I live. And I'm here to encourage you to vote positively tonight to support the ADUs. We've been sort of tracking this from afar for a couple of years, almost 2 years now, anxiously waiting to build our about 300 square foot ADU in our back garden. And I think the city planners have done a terrific job. I think the information made available is terrific. It's been well thought out. And I would concur with the earlier neighbor who said, let's just vote. Let's make a decision, because you guys have done great work so far. So I encourage you to vote yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Rick Wade. Okay, great. Mr. Wade, here to speak about ADUs. It's okay. Can't read some things, but usually I'm pretty good at it.
Hello, Council. My name's Rick Wade, and I live at 2901 South Ogden, and I'm here to speak on behalf of ADUs. I would like you to pass this through tonight. Thank you for voting affirmatively last meeting. I did pull up a statistic, but it seems like the same things keep coming up over and over again, that there's not going to be that many of them. If there's not that many of them, what's the problem? You guys have done the impact studies. I don't understand. I keep hearing, I heard a lot earlier. I'll do some more research on this. Apparently there aren't going to be any codes on that. I kind of find that hard to believe. So every time I pull a permit, I am a contractor. I have to follow codes. I'm assuming it'll be the same with ADUs. So that's it. I'm here to encourage you to vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Next is Mr. Ben Watson, here to speak about ADUs as well.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ben Watson. I live at 2362 East Dartmouth Avenue. I'm here in support of ADUs. I've lived in Colorado for the last 18 years while the rest of my family is out of state. My wife and I have a newborn on the way, and an ADU would facilitate our family to be able to come out and stay with us and help take care of this child. Affordable hotels are scarce and not appropriate for a family. Our property layout or our home layout doesn't facilitate adding on to our current house unless we tore down two 60-year-old silver maples. So in our scenario, adding on is just not feasible. We'd have to do something that is detached from our house. Like many homes in Englewood, our home is not massive, and this much-needed space would help our child get to know their out-of-town grandparents. I would imagine an ADU would help would not help many developers because developers are scraping. New homes are these massive lot line size, and there's very few new homes that would have enough room to facilitate an additional building. And I was just trying to listen to everybody when they talked and address some points along the way. So if a major concern is that ADUs would be popping up everywhere, you could limit the permits or allow ADUs when specified requirements are needed, such as family growth or whatever it may be. You could easily state ADUs cannot be used for short-term rentals like Airbnb, or they would be fined. That would help self-regulate as well. So if neighbors have a complaint that it's being used as an Airbnb and new people are coming in on a daily basis, that could be mitigated pretty easily. ADUs should be permitted separately to keep this separated from duplex, because I'd imagine that there's some confusion on what an ADU is versus duplex or something along those lines. I heard somebody mention that only 2.7% of the citizens in their zone were interested in ADU, and I didn't think that those numbers seemed accurate. I was never asked, my neighbors were never asked, and no one that I know that lives in Englewood was ever asked. If anything, seeing a low number like that, I think would be good, because it means that these wouldn't be popping up everywhere, and that an ADU wouldn't be like the new iPhone and everybody wants one. ADUs could also benefit the city because the property's values would increase, which increases taxes, which increases revenue. A standalone building for an ADU could easily cost $100,000, which people wouldn't just willy-nilly build. However, with housing prices, that's an economic option for many people that are in my need. As I believe it was Mr. Frazier pointed out, the utilities are in place for these units, and ADUs are a really needed form in Englewood. I'd also like to mention that I was in support of those parks, whoever the park people are. Mushroom Park. I don't know what the real name of it is, but the mushrooms are falling apart, and if somebody doesn't take care of the concrete, it's going to cost a lot more to fix.
Thank you very much. I think there was a question from Mayor Pro Tem Russell, if you're willing to come back.
Yes. Could you tell me again what your address was?
2362 East Dartmouth.
Dartmouth Place, Avenue?
Avenue, yeah. Sorry.
Dartmouth Avenue?
Dartmouth's over there.
Okay, and you realize that perhaps these don't, I'll address that later.
I did not know that.
Okay.
No.
All right, well, I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. This ends our unscheduled public comment, I believe. Council, I think I would like, yes, is there someone else? Oh, Tammy Williamson. Yes, one more. Ms. Williamson here to speak about ADUs. I know you added late, but glad to see you.
Thanks. I did have a PowerPoint and everything all prepared, but left it home along with my final draft, so here we go. I'm here tonight to urge council to vote no.
Could you give your name and your address?
Tammy Williamson, 4198 South Washington. Great. I'm here tonight to urge council to vote no on allowing ADUs and to protect our R1C communities from the investors, developers, and out-of-town and out-of-state interests who seek to obliterate the very thing that draws people here in the first place. Our hometown feel, the escape from urban overcrowding, and the American dream of owning one's home with a yard. And and all of that is because of our R1C zoning. What the City Planning and Zoning Department is trying to pull off is nothing short of gentrification. For every promise they've made and lie they have told, we have presented real evidence with pictures that prove them wrong with photos and documents. The City Planning and Zoning Department offers all kinds of assurances and promises, like the increase of property value, not for the surrounding properties who see their value go down because nobody wants to live next to renters. And not to mention the insurance rates that will go up when your fence is broken several times, when your car is hit and run several times. Fact, which has been presented to City Council. They promise that there will be no parking problems if a spot is provided. The illegal ADU that has been next to me since we moved in 15 years ago has been nothing but a parking problem, and the current occupant of the ADU refuses to use said parking unit, instead chooses to block my other neighbor's garage, as he has done so every day for the past 4 months. There is a definite loss of privacy that neighbors will experience. The first time I was here, I did bring up the one renter's boyfriend who was a peeping Tom, and the window that overlooks my yard is no help either. Trash, tons of trash. Right now, the property next door to me is sitting on 3, coming up on 4 weeks of uncollected garbage. What are we going to do about that? I called and reported it, and all they did was hide it. It is still sitting there collecting mice and rats and all sorts of vermin. They assure us that crime will not increase, which is also a lie that I have facts of. The tenants prior to the ones that are there now were known tweakers. They have brought all their drug-addicted friends with them. I have presented written evidence from the owner of the property admitting that he knew they had drug problems. And they did we have on video a friend of theirs shown entering their property who was breaking into all the neighborhood
finish
cars.
up, but we do have a question.
I'm going to end with the comment that zoning will not enforce or regulate a damn thing because in the several decades that we have had a ban on ADUs, they have banned nothing.
We have one question from Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Ms. Williamson, I would like for you to share with the council and with the public for the record what a staff member sent to you in an email and about collecting or enforcing the law.
Okay. Do I include the...
Actually, what you should do is forward that to email to all of council.
That would be great.
But I just wanted
you... The notice of non-violation that had no due date, or do you want the letter of reply when I called to ask about what...
I think you should turn that in to the city clerk and let her have that. Also, the email send to all of council, because I think it's important for this council to know that we do not have the staff to enforce the problems
Member
right
Russell,
now.
this is a time for questions.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
I have mine.
Councilmember Barentine has a question.
Who did you report the
You're in a single-family residential area. You're claiming that the neighbor has a multi-unit family residence that he's built there, some apartments there. Who did you report that to?
About 5 years ago, I reported it to zoning, and the guy not only lied to me about it, he told me it was a gray area, when we all know, in fact, that R1C is not a gray area. It is one family per lot. And when I pressed him on the issue, he went back to his office, printed out a photo of my home with the specs of my home, and proceeded to ask me, didn't your garage used to be a detached garage? Implying that I had better back off, or he was going to go after me for.
Could you provide counsel with the answer to that question? Who did you file a complaint with regarding the trash?
Code enforcement.
And you have the response from them that you're going to give to counsel?
They did not respond.
Could you please note that and the date that you made the complaint? You said there was something with your fence. Has there been any other damage to your property?
Over the years, there's been a lot of damage. My back fence has been crashed into twice by 2 different renters of the illegal ADU. My vintage car has been hit and run by another renter of the property. When I called police, they did nothing about it.
Okay. I don't want to keep you up there too long. Could you please provide counsel with that information as well? Who you filed the complaint with and when that happened? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. This ends our unscheduled public comment time. I'm going to suggest, counsel, if you're okay, to take a quick break for about 5 minutes and then come back to start up with Agenda 8.
Should we do response to public comment before?
It's been moved to the end.
It's been moved to the end?
I believe that's what we decided, and it's up here on this, so we'll have to talk about it again. It's the first time I've not seen that.
Thank you for reminding me.
Did I talk to your wife?
You may have.
I think.
We're the ones that had Verizon up the tower across,
Yeah, but,
and
oh,
it's just.
You're in R1A, aren't you? Or are you?
I think
you are.
Jackie.
You have my email.
I do,
I'm pretty sure it's. Is the Verizon?
No. Thank you.
Is the Verizon thing working out?
You know, I had to sue them, and
Did
I
they
beat
do
them.
anything?
Yeah, turned down the amperage.
I come to council meetings
Sure.
and stuff, and all the faces of Chief Myers.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, well, thank you for listening. One thing I wanted to really stress was the parking, age varies and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parking spaces.
No, you're not. You're not. Not in court. You can cuss.
I know.
Yes, yes.
I appreciate that they've got that age. Kid back from school.
Yeah, I know.
That's a great point. I think she said something that we'll get folks to pretty quick turnover. Like they're from weeks or months. They're there for months. And that's what it's I think when it's will only be a handful. I think I would capture that title that goes seconds. The good or the good does not look bad. It's we're saying it's truthful. Straight on this road's going to go. That's it. Also, so we'll see. Right. Sure. You know what? But yeah, you know, in a perfect world, I would love to do citizen. I'm District 4. Yes, sir. And I got your address here. You know Cherokee? Excuse me, yes, sir. So I'm on this out. We've got some R1s over there. There's definitely a swath of the church. Yeah, we'll see how this one shakes out.
That was more than 5 minutes, I think.
Tim,
Oh.
Okay with me making okay. I'm okay. Okay. Because I'd like to make, I'm sorry I didn't ask your question, but like. Council, if we could get back to our seats.
Doesn't matter.
Email me and I'll tell you.
Yeah, email her. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Like giving something.
I was a little worried if you were going to come back or not. I figured you were. But.
Amy, I let them know that they called me. So, Thank you. We're resuming the regular City Council meeting, and agenda item 8, communications, proclamations, and appointments. We have none. Agenda number 9, consent agenda items. Could I have a motion to approve these?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 9B1, 9B2, 9C1, 9C2, 9C3, 9C4, and 9C5.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Councilmember Russell.
I don't know that I necessarily need to pull these, but I have a couple of them that I have questions on, but can I ask the questions before?
Which ones?
I believe it's 9C2.
Point of information.
And hang on a second. Could you, and what's the second one?
The second one is 9C4.
Okay. Councilmember Barentine?
I would prefer that we just pull.
Okay, let's pull them. And then let's go on with the ones that we are. So now we're asking for a 9B1, 2, C1, and 3, and 5, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Barentine?
And also to go ahead and pull the 9C4.
We are pulling
We
it.
already are, but that's
Oh,
good.
okay. I didn't hear you say that.
All right.
Could we pull 9C3 also? I have a quick question about that.
All right, now we're back to 9B1 and 2 and 9C1 and 5. Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
All approved. Thank you. On to 9C2. Mayor Pro Tem, what is your question?
My quick question was, why was there a need to document single source umbrella replacement when actually, I mean, we did bids, right?
Is this, okay, thank you. State your name and your position.
Matt
Thank
Anderson, Senior Facility Supervisor Aquatics. So you are correct, we were going sole source with it, but what we wanted to do is show council that the company that we were using was the lowest bid, so I went out and just arbitrarily took a couple more quotes from bids. Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. How about 3? 9C3?
9C3.
I had a question about that one, or are we?
9C2.
Sorry, Member Barentine had her light on. I didn't. Okay. Mr. Anderson, can you come back? Is it for him?
Yes.
Okay. Go for it.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned about the definition about the sole source. Mm-hmm. So if you have a sole source, but you're able to get bids, then it doesn't make them a sole source. So I am a little confused that was used because it wasn't necessary because you got the bids anyway. So I think it's just a matter of the verbiage in there. So is it really necessary to have it listed as a sole source?
It wasn't. The reason we were going for sole source originally is because the manufacturer was Waterloo Tent and Tarp. Uh-huh. They were the manufacturers of the structure themselves when we opened up Pirates Cove 15 years ago. So that's what we went with, was to go forward and have them replace those, the canopies, because the structure themselves are totally fine.
Right.
What we needed to do was just the fabric itself was falling apart. So what we did was went out and got 2 other quotes to come out just to show that we are being prudent with getting a low cost, the best cost we can out there.
Okay.
In the aquatics industry.
But by design, that kind of makes them not the sole source. Could I ask the city attorney a question, please? If the contract is identified as a sole source contract, does it affect the contractor moving forward in the future with that contract in any way?
No. The sole source language for non-capital expenditures is just language that was included within the city's purchasing policy, and the city is interpreting that language incredibly broadly to make sure that if there's any question that we have put a sole source within that. But no, there's no negative impact.
And would the city attorney agree that this then doesn't qualify really as a sole source since they got the bid?
It went through as a single source, but we're putting everything through identifying so that you know when we're going to just a single party. When it came through for original approval, it was just a single party. But again, they went back and were looking at additional prices just in case council had questions about, is this a good price for the city or not?
And is it capable of removing that language then from it? If we just have a sensitivity in the city right now to that so that we adequately represent that this actually was bid?
I would ask the rest of the council to weigh in. Is this an important thing to do tonight? So let's run through quickly.
Could you answer that question?
As far as restate that, please.
Is it possible that you could just restate it that it was a bidded process and take that language out of there so that it's just not in the?
Well, it didn't go out to bid. What we did was received additional quotes.
Okay.
For the replacement of it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councilmember Wink.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I believe. I understand that you provided extra information beyond what was needed for added clarification for the council, and given that, sole source remains what it is, I think. And the language in the documentation shows that, so I don't think we need to spend time or change anything.
Anyone else? Okay, let's call for a vote. Can I have a motion to approve 9C2?
I move to approve 9C2.
Second.
Councilmember Berentine.
I greatly appreciate, there was some confusion with this, and I greatly appreciate the additional information and greatly appreciate that you did the extra work to go ahead and make sure that that was available. Sorry for the confusion on the language.
No problem.
But I appreciate it's way better than having the constituents believe that this is a continuing problem. So thank you for the work you did.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No other comments? Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
The next one is 9C3, Englewood Employee Association Bargaining Agreement Update. Mayor Pro Tem, I believe you had questions.
This is not a bargaining year, correct?
Correct.
And so were there issues since December 4th, 2017 that precipitated these memorandum of understandings?
I'm not sure that you could say problems, but there were disagreements about how exactly to interpret some of the language, which wasn't clear in the original agreement. The purpose of these memorandum of understanding is just to clarify those procedures in these 3 different areas.
Okay, and these were agreeable to both sides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please vote. Oh,
yes.
sorry, we need a motion to approve.
I move to approve 9C3.
I second that.
Thank you. Now vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
9C4, in-kind aid approval. Mayor Pro Tem and Member Berentine, I think you both might have had questions here.
Okay, so the one question that I had is Lisa Smith has come forward before. Is she 501c3?
My understanding is that she is a for-profit business.
A for-profit business.
I'm not sure about the organization that she's putting together, for whether that would be a profit-making opportunity, but I know that she does have her own business.
Okay, so my question is, if she does, is it possible that we could come back and add to the in-kind, come back with another one of these in-kind aid approval?
That would certainly be up to council. I think your original definition was a 501c3.
Right.
I don't think she qualifies for that, but I would want to verify that information, but I don't think so.
Right. Okay. And that was my question.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Councilmember Berentine?
I would prefer something like this when we've had such a huge change in process, not come to the consent agenda. We changed a process over that was doing the aid to other agencies, and then we drastically changed it this year and reallocated that money for some of the, as small as it is, but we reallocated it to help some of the other infrastructure issues that were going on. So I think it's important that it not just kind of slide through like that. That's part of why I pulled it, is to make sure that at least, I would prefer that it was at least read out for the record so that people understood that we're changing a process here. And it's fairly significant, I think, of a culture change. So I would like it to be read.
Councilmember Barentine, do you want us to read the whole paragraph? Is that what you're asking for tonight?
I'll be more than happy to do that if you'd like.
Let me let Councilmember Wink first ask her question.
I was going to make a motion to approve 9C4.
Okay. Can you read it for us, or Councilmember Barentine can, either one?
Me?
I'll be happy to. The in-kind is, like I said, a changeover from what we did to aid to other agencies previously. I think we had an amount of around $20,000 before, $20,000 to $30,000 that we were giving before. In recent years, a decision was made by council in a study session, and this is the codification of that decision, or that this is what we're voting on, and that was to go ahead and not give aid to other agencies, but do in-kind aid approval. And it is that staff recommends the City Council approve the resolution indicating the designation of in-kind aid to those nonprofit organizations selected by the City Council at the December 3rd, 2018 study session. Previous council action. City Council discussed in-kind aid to nonprofit organizations for the year 2019 at the study session held on December 3rd. Council determined that it can provide in-kind aid to the nonprofit organizations listed below. Agency: Englewood Historic Preservation, in-kind aid printing, use of public notice posting boards, meeting and office space. Englewood High School's Englewood Veterans Memorial Day, banner installation, advertising space and office space. Special Olympics program, the use of the Englewood Recreation Center. And then there is a resolution that is attached to this, whereas the City Council...
Councilmember Barentine, I don't think we need you to read that.
Okay.
This is a public document that everybody can find right now, but thank you for going through that. So we have a motion and a second, I believe.
Do we have a second?
Who is a second? Did we have?
I'll second. We didn't have one,
All
I
right.
don't think.
Any further comments? Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10, we have no public hearing items. Agenda number 11, ordinances, resolutions, and motions. 11B, approval of ordinance on second reading. We have CB2, amended accessory dwelling unit, ordinance second reading. Staff recommends City Council approve an ordinance for ADUs with City Attorney enforcement provisions. The City Attorney's Office has amended the original Planning and Zoning Commission's recommended ADU ordinance to reflect the council amendments which were approved on December 17, 2018. Because amendments were made to the council bill on December 17, 2018, this bill for ordinance is being presented for second reading. Here to answer any questions is Staff Planner 2, John Vobero.
Good evening, council members. The bill before you has been amended to reinstate the R2B, R2A, and R1C zone districts, as well as establish a 6-month moratorium on the neighborhood preservation overlay. At this time, I would be glad to take any questions or invite council legislative action on this issue.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve on second reading?
I move to approve.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell, you just did it at the nick of time. Do you want it, or are you asking for approving?
Well, I do. I would like to ask the city attorney a question. Since there were changes at the last meeting, and several people called me and were confused over the changes that went on, do we need another public hearing because of the changes?
Thank you for asking that question. The answer to that is no. Actually, instead of making you all crazy with giving you the really long answer, the short answer is no, you don't have to have a public hearing for the modifications to the ordinance that were presented.
Thank you.
Councilmember Barentine?
The original vote for this was to go ahead and severely limit it to transitional areas. And then 2 weeks later, we, and out of courtesy, even though 2 members of this board were not here, knowing that they would probably vote for the ADUs, I was in support of making sure that we had the full council here, even though we could have killed the ADU issue and we would have taken a vote and it would have more than likely gone down. Some very serious change of information has happened since the public hearing, where a council member who voted to go ahead and limit the ADUs has now said that they've garnered information significant enough to change their vote, not only to
Point of information, that is inaccurate. That is not what I said.
I'll recognize the information. Is it a question, Councilmember Wink, or is it?
What I said is that
so the actually point of information is to ask a question. So I will wait, and I'll allow you, if you want to put your light on, I will call on you next. Continue, Councilmember Barentine.
Where a council member stated that they got significant enough information or feedback that they changed their vote polar opposite to where it was previously. And that was not shared with the public or the opportunity for them to go ahead and weigh in. Also, we have included a moratorium on areas, and the public was not ever, it wasn't discussed during the public hearing, nor was the public made aware that the opportunity to put a moratorium on certain areas, similar to what these community members have come up tonight, that maybe we should do a more Denver style and let the neighborhoods decide or limit the permitting. So I would agree that we should probably have another public hearing, but I would also like to make a motion for an amendment to this to go ahead and put a moratorium on ADUs for District 3 for the similar reasons and for the same time period as what's being offered in District 2 for Mayor Olson's area.
So are you asking a question? Or?
I just made a motion.
Second.
All right, so Councilmember Wink wanted to speak.
Thanks, Mayor.
I believe we would let you speak to this amendment on it. Is that correct? Yeah.
So I'm not speaking to the amendment.
So I'm going to ask Council to allow you to do both, to allow you to speak to the information that was given and to correct it if it's correct, and then to speak to this motion.
Thank you very much, Mayor Olson. So I will correct what's been misinterpreted about what I said. I have been, since my very first Wink Talk community meeting, each of my meetings has a title in it. The January 2018 meeting was the ABCs of ADUs. There's some members of our audience that was there. And I had an architect from Denver come and present, and lots of questions were answered, lots of participation. At that meeting and throughout the entire year of 2018, I've been communicating with citizens and entities within Englewood. I haven't garnered any information in the last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's information that has been shared with me and communicated to and with me from January 2018. January 2018. There's no last-minute switch of anything. I simply made a mistake. If I'm not allowed to make mistakes, well, that's another issue we should talk about. But I made a mistake in that vote. I was a little confused and should have just paused and reconfirmed what I was voting on. That's what happened. Here we are. Thank you for saying that. And I think that we're on second reading. I'm in favor of ADUs, and I believe we have a majority vote. So I think that the council should go ahead and vote on that.
Councilmember Barentine?
I think the Mayor Pro Tem's point that things are confused even more now than they were when Councilmember Wink was confused by her original vote. They're even more confused now. We have had the city publish the information that it was going to be limited to the industrial area, transition areas, and now all of a sudden 2 weeks later, another vote the other way goes, and they're a little confused on what we're voting. We have people come to the podium and say that they want the urban lots in there, and I had people think that what we voted on last time was actually including that you could go ahead and put a second structure on a 37-foot frontage. I think we've confused it more than when Councilmember Wink was confused the first time. So I do believe that we probably should have a public hearing, but nonetheless, since it's been made available to put a moratorium on it, I have all of 2018 had the opportunity to go to my district numerous times for debates, another recall election, and I made it very clear that I wanted to go ahead and vote for my constituents and limit the single-family homes out of the ADUs, and that's what they want me to do, and I'm going to represent them. So now that I've been made aware, which I never knew was an option until the mayor got that for her area, I would like I said, to have support that District 3 is given the same consideration as District 2 for the area that has been carved out for a moratorium, so that we can see how this is going to play out before we go and sacrifice our single-family areas.
Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly appreciate all the information that has come forward here tonight. I would like to speak on behalf of all of the citizens of Englewood and represent them by making a decision. This has been on the table for many years. And as opposed to kicking it down the street and holding up progress for the good of the city, once again, I would like this council to make a decision. It's our second reading, and to move forward so that citizens, several of whom spoke with us this evening, can make a decision, a financial decision that they've been waiting on, one young lady said, since 2013. The penchant for postponing, I think I would like to not do that for the good of the city and for the citizens.
Thank you. Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. So my understanding is we're just speaking to the current proposed amendment, correct? I will be supporting it, and I'm not especially optimistic it will pass, but if it does, I will be following with an amendment to keep a moratorium in place for District 4 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I will not be supporting an amendment to a moratorium in District 3.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine.
Then I would propose that we not support a moratorium anywhere. I think that this kind of cherry picking on who gets stuck with these ADUs is already showing itself by wanting to do a moratorium in the first place. We are making a decision, and a decision on ADUs has been made several times in the past, and the vote was no, and no is a decision as well. People who bought the properties knew what they were buying. They knew the zoning they were going into. We are not taking any value away from them. They knew what they were.
Councilmember Barentine, do you have anything new to the actual discussion here? We've heard this already before several times. So is there something new to the motion that you
I wanted
made?
to make sure I cleared up so that we didn't have any.
I think it's pretty clear from us from what you think.
Confusion on it.
So I think we need to vote on this amendment and then take up anything else. So we need.
I would like to have the additional information on whether we're going to still consider a moratorium for one area and not allow moratoriums in any other areas.
If you want to change your amendment, I think that's the only way to do it. We have
I'm just
to follow
asking the
through.
question. I was
You
just
can do
asking the
anybody
question
who
as
wants
part
to
of the
create
discussion.
another amendment can.
I was just asking the question as part of the discussion.
Okay.
If nobody wishes to address it, that's fine.
All right, please vote. Would you like to restate it? It's an amendment to actually do a moratorium for District 3 only. Do you want to restate your
Correct.
actual amendment?
The time and the limitations on it, you know very well. So if you'll just state the same time and limitations that would be allowed for the area that you want a moratorium
Not
on.
my amendment. It's yours. Please state it, or does the clerk have it?
Yeah, I want a moratorium on the ADUs for District 3.
We're voting? All right, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 3 ayes and 4 nays. The 4 nays being Councilmember Sierra, Martinez, Mayor Olson, and Councilmember Wink.
All right, on to the original Amendment 2, CB2, second reading.
I move to approve 11B1, CB2, Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance, second reading.
I second that.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Barentine first.
Are we going to consider having another public hearing? I mean, I thought the Mayor Pro Tem had brought that up already.
I think there was no motion for that. There is nothing in this particular reading to have a second public hearing, nor did our legal counsel tell us that we had to do it. As a matter of fact, said that we do not need to do that.
Okay, so all right. I mean, I'm a bit confused because this is not the second reading we've had. This is the second reading. So I'm a little confused on how you're handling that, but that's the way you want to do that, so be it.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
This question is for Mr. Voberl. Does this ordinance include urban lots? Can you build an ADU on an urban lot?
No, not at this time. With this bill, it is not allowed.
So how is a small lot different from an urban lot?
A small lot is a lot that's smaller than 50 foot in width, but larger than 40 foot in width. And an urban lot is less than 40 foot in width.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir. Why were urban lots left out of this?
I think it was probably an oversight. Quite frankly, in my opinion, some urban lots, they can range from 39 feet down to things like 25 or maybe even 20 feet. I don't think that an accessory dwelling unit would be fittable for certain lot sizes, but it certainly would fit on a lot size that is probably 37 foot in width. That is 3 feet off of the small lot. And so I believe it was kind of an oversight that we just did not consider urban lots.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Barentine.
2 questions. So you can put an ADU on a small lot?
Yes, you can.
Okay, and what's the size of a small lot?
Between 40 and 50 feet in width.
Okay, so that was the question that some people had because the original was not going to be on anything that was less than 50-foot frontage. Is there the capability of us limiting the amount of permits so that we can stagger this out just in case there's not going to be a rush to do this and there's not going to be a lot of impact here? Is there a way for us to go ahead and stagger these so that we at least have some control over it?
I believe you'd have to amend the bill.
It's been brought up also to have the neighborhoods. Have you looked into that? How this was news to me tonight that only 10% of Denver is even allowing ADUs and that they do a neighborhood process for it. Was that looked into at all?
Actually, I've found recently that Denver is moving to expand ADUs significantly, particularly in West Denver, for affordability issues. Mm-hmm. I have never heard of any kind of opt-in ordinance in Denver for ADUs.
Do you think that they have more than 10% where it's allowed in Denver? Do you think the information that he gave was inaccurate?
I do not know what the percentage of Denver that allows ADUs. I couldn't really
Okay,
answer.
then I guess I'll go with the the research that he did, so I'll take it that we haven't looked at that, is I would like to make an amendment to the ordinance that we at least put some staggering of the permits so that we have some availability to control just in case this is going out. I don't know what that number would look like, but I would be more than willing to stick with the number that has been currently provided by the Community Development Department, and that's that there's 48 of them of people that already want to do them. So if that's the number that we've been given, and it's not going to be that impactful, then I think that we ought to limit it to that so that we can see whether there really is a much bigger impact that this is going to have.
Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem Russell's first, and then.
Okay, I have a question.
I made a motion.
I didn't hear a motion. I
heard
us to make a motion. If you
right.
like to restate it.
I heard it start with motion, and so I was going to ask her that question.
Would you like?
Yes. Would you make it again, Councilmember Barentine?
Pardon?
Motion. Would you make the motion again?
I make a motion that we
Point
limit.
of order. We have a motion in place at the moment.
We do. And so what she's asking for is an amendment to the current motion again. So that is allowed. We could do this all night long, so let's be careful. But Councilmember Barentine, could you state exactly, you went on for quite a long time without really giving the exact amendment. What is it that you want?
A personal point of order, I would prefer that you're not making comments that are disparaging to me. That's a personal attack,
true.
and I don't appreciate that.
I would appreciate it if you would be succinct on this one, then just to give us exactly what it is you want the amendment.
I would have appreciated if all of council were here on the second reading of this so that we wouldn't be dealing with this at this point.
Councilmember Barentine, that is the same thing that you just did to me. So everyone knew well far in advance that I would be gone those 2 nights, and I appreciate very much that you were one of those who said, yes, let's wait another week. So yes, thank you for that. Please state your amendment.
And when you know that you're not going to be there, you were the one who scheduled it. So if you could please...
Point of order. What is the amendment, please?
Yes. The amendment, Councilmember Barentine?
So my point of decorum at least is on the record. Thank you. The motion is that we limit the permits to the number that has been provided by Community Development, which is 48 for the year of 2019, so that we can come back and address whether we're going to continue any kind of limits on the permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Please vote on the amendment.
There's no discussion.
Councilmember Cuesta has a question.
I'm not going to support because I don't think there should be any permits.
Pardon?
I'm not going to support because I don't believe there should be any permits, let alone 48.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 2 ayes and 5 nays. The 5 nays being Councilmember Sierra, Martinez, Mayor Olson, Councilmember Wink, and Cuesta.
Thank you. We're back to the original motion.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. My question is for Mr. Voberl. On the ADU ordinance altogether, that if someone chooses to build an ADU, it does not impact the lot coverage. This, like the 60%, or what is the amount of lot coverage that?
That must meet the lot coverage for the district.
Okay, so whatever it is for the district, it didn't change?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think we have a first and a second, correct, Clerk?
Yes.
Please vote on whether to approve CB2, amended accessory dwelling unit, on second reading of the ordinance.
Oh, actually,
We're in discussion, I believe.
yeah, we're in the discussion.
Order. I believe that would take us to discussion.
Right. Right. So are we there? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I will not be supporting this. There are a couple reasons. The infrastructure piece, and as one young woman shared, that the infrastructure is not caused by the growth, it is caused by neglect. If we have a catastrophic infrastructure failure, it is going to make it worse. I do believe tapping into the water and sewer lines more is likely to disturb the situation. So for that reason, and also for the code violations that are not being addressed, the alleys in this city are a mess. Code enforcement is not addressing those. The parking issues that have been brought forward, those are not being addressed, and so I will not be supporting this.
Councilmember Barentine?
And Councilmember Cuesta.
Was it Cuesta first? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do think that there's really passionate perspectives on this and good points on both sides. The stories of folks that are looking for more family space, be it they have an aging parent, a child returning from college, in-laws, we've heard many examples. I can personally relate to many of those, and again, I do find those very compelling. Then we have folks who have told us stories where they've had very poor relationships with homes that have neighboring ADUs. Some of them allowed under prior code from the 50s, some of them not, and that's what really gives me pause. I don't think we're going to see a great number of ADUs coming out of this, but I don't think it takes that many to go wrong to really infect a neighborhood and just be bad for a block. I don't see the net positive outweighing the net negative. We had a discussion when we first started on council, and it was, what's our end goal? And I think a couple people came back to the conclusion, hopefully leave the city better than we found it. I think this is one of those very long-term votes that really will have an impact one way or the other. To that note, Councilmember Wink mentioned the good of the city, and I do think that everybody up here does vote with their conscience and in the good that they think will move this city forward. For me, I am not going to support it this evening. I don't think that vote is going to go my way. Having said that, I'll root for it to do well. I certainly hope this does go well if it's going to pass, and that is what I have this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine.
I want to thank you, Mayor, for acknowledging that I'm not for ADUs, and I could have had my way, and we could have not allowed it to be tabled in order for other members to vote, because doing the right thing is more important to me than winning an issue one way or the other. I will state that I do believe that this is going to put a burden on the infrastructure that's already obviously having some very serious problems. We had ADUs before. There were 180 of them done. They're all grandfathered in currently, and they're all rentals. They're rentals. They put a stop to that because of the impact it was having on the community, and we're going to need to consider that. These are on top of the 180 that we already have. Less than 2 years ago, a huge zoning change was made, and that made urban lots available, which was, my understanding, about 280 properties. And we have no idea how many of those very small properties are already having homes built on them where they couldn't before, and the impact that that might be having, as well as the additional density. But the enforcement issue has been a huge concern. And the confusion about enforcing Airbnbs or multifamily in a residential area that's clearly illegal is already putting a burden on the code enforcement and showing the citizens that we're going to have some serious issues with this. And we've put the neighbors in charge of tattling on each other instead of having an enforcement process that I believe is even doable. And then the diversity of housing stock. I think Denver made a wise decision by putting this into the hands of the neighborhoods, and that only 10% of Denver is even allowing it. Those neighborhoods were able to go ahead and make a decision that if they wanted some diversity in housing stock to offer single-family communities, then that's what they're deciding. We're doing this for the entire city, and I think it's a mistake. I'll not be supporting it. I don't think that disagreeing with something is not moving forward. It's making a decision that we have a different viewpoint of where the future will be. And I respect the citizens who have come forward on both ways. But I certainly want to protect District 3 and the single-family area, and I think we're going to lose that, and I'm very sad about this vote.
Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. We have been discussing this topic for at least the 3 years I've been on council, and it was discussed several years prior to that. So we've heard from lots of folks, poured over tons of research over the last several years, and the stories that have stuck out to me the most are those relating to folks wanting to take care of their family, expand room for their family, whether it be children or parents or otherwise. So for those have really stuck out to me, and we've heard from a lot of folks in terms of wanting it for that. It has been years and years and years, so many discussions, so many public meetings, discussion after discussion. This is only going to be the third time it's been before this council. It's been brought up that it was voted down before. It has not been voted down before. This will be the third time it's been in front of us. The first time was passed with amendments. The second time it was tabled because 2 members were absent. This is the third time we're going to be voting on it after at least 5 years of it being discussed. So the term that was used in public comment about analysis paralysis really resonated with me with this particular topic. I think we're way past analysis paralysis. I think I am more than ready to move forward, so I will be supporting it tonight.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 4 ayes and 3 nays, the 3 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell, Councilmember Barentine, and Cuesta.
Thank you. Moving on to 11B2, Retail Cultivation Ordinance. Staff recommends City Council approve an ordinance to amend the Englewood Municipal Code to allow retail marijuana cultivation within the city. And Deputy City Clerk Jackie McKinnon is here.
Good evening. Council Bill 48 came to City Council on December 17th for a first reading, and we're back tonight for the second reading. And if there are any questions, I can take those now.
Councilmember Sierra.
Just a quick comment. I know that within the actual language itself, it does says that the cultivation operations would not exceed 5,000 square feet, but within the summary, it still states that that it could exceed 5,000. I just wanted to point that out, that it's still going to be under 5,000.
Yes, so it's going to be 5,000 or less, yes.
Thank you for pointing that out. I really want to make sure that is, I will look at it when I sign it if this passes, but it's important that be corrected. Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. Just want to make a quick statement on this. I am generally supportive of retail cultivation in our community, but I will not be supporting this tonight only because all the other marijuana-related votes have gone before our voters. So,
thank you. Any further comments, questions? Okay, please vote. Mayor, so Councilmember Cuesta, you have
yes,
a question?
Mayor, similar to the first reading, I would recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you for reminding me, and yes, you'll be recused. Please vote.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, I thought we didn't. Yes, thank you. We didn't. Motion.
I move to approve 11B2 Retail Cultivation Ordinance CB 48.
A second. All right, now discussion.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Member Wink.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I will not be supporting this as it was passed by a vote of the people, and it needs to be approved by a vote of the people as well. So I will be voting no.
Thank you. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 4 ayes and 2 nays. The 2 nays being Councilmember Martinez and Mayor Pro Tem Russell, and Councilmember Cuesta recused himself.
Thank you. The next is 11B3, the wastewater rate increase. Staff recommends City Council approve an ordinance for a 7% rate increase for wastewater utility service to become effective March 1st, 2019. This increase is anticipated to be in place for 2019 only. Future wastewater rates will be established following the cost of service study scheduled to be completed by the end of the second quarter. Staff Director Tom Brennan is here to answer any questions.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to entertain your questions at this time.
Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve Council Bill 50, wastewater rate increase.
Thank you. Could I hear a second?
Second.
Councilmember Wink. Thank you. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I will not be supporting this because there was no rate increase study done prior to the proposed. The justification was based on the fact that we had a rate increase, or we had not had a rate increase in the 3 prior years. I believe that we need to be planning further ahead and getting the documentation that we need.
Councilmember Barentine.
I'll not be supporting it either. I made it very clear that I believe that the increase is due to the biogas money, $4.7 million, decreasing the fund, and also we were told that a rate study would be done. So I realize why the emergency piece of it, and I realize it's only going to garner $1.5 million, but it's the requirement on the contract, and it's still not in there, and that's not disclosure or transparency.
Seeing no further comments, please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Councilmember Barentine.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is 11B4, marijuana tax increase. Staff is presenting for codification an initiative ordinance levying an additional sales tax of up to 15% to be imposed upon the sale of retail marijuana within the city, passed by the voters of the City of Englewood on November 8, 2016. Staff Acting Finance and Administrative Services Director Maria Zapata is here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Happy New Year. I am here to bring forth the second reading of Council Bill 51. The first reading was held on December 17th. Staff recommends including the initiative ordinance within the Englewood Municipal Code to make it more accessible to the public. With that, I will take any questions.
I think Councilmember Barentine has a question.
We had a business owner come up here and say that this was not in compliance. They didn't believe, and I think feel strongly enough that they said that they were going to take it further action on this if we pass it. Are you aware of what that is, or should I ask the city attorney?
So if I could comment, I believe that the comment that was made earlier might relate to Council Bill 52, not 51.
Okay. I keep thinking
so this is the codification of the initiative ordinance. I think the question referred to Council Bill 52.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, which number are we on right now?
51. Council Bill 51.
Huh?
Council Bill 51. It is related to the marijuana tax rate increase. However, it's the codification of the initiative ordinance that was voted on.
Okay.
I think your concern, Councilmember Barentine, which is a smart one, is CB 52. I think that's what he was speaking to. Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
So I think this question also, the codification really should have occurred after the election rather than, closer to the election rather than now. Is that correct?
It is correct, and I can't speak to what has happened in the past. I can only say that when I find out that something hasn't been done, I seek the city attorney's advice, and we bring it forth at that time.
Okay, so this isn't really changing anything. It's just codifying the vote of the people.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Barentine.
I believe it is this one, because I think that the way that we're interpreting this, that this is part of the way that we're kind of interpreting it. Is this in any way interpreting the way that vote went through on how we're moving forward with how we're going to do the tax?
I can only speak from my perspective, and I'd like to defer to the city attorney. My perspective is that Council Bill 52 addresses how the council will approve the tax rates going forward.
And then this is the tax rate increase itself. Which one is what? Okay. This one says it's the codification of it, which gives me the impression that it is our interpretation of what that vote was.
Okay, I'm going to try again.
Okay.
And if I don't clarify it this time, or the city attorney has a conflicting opinion, I would ask for her advice, or maybe the council could address the city attorney. Council Bill 51 is the codification of the ordinance that was voted on in 2016 that was included in the packet for the council to determine whether or not there would be an increase, which I understand. It's not saying that there would be an increase, it's to say that there could be. Council Bill 52 is actually determining the method by which you would go about a tax increase and put one into effect. If I've misstated that, I guess, or it's not understood, I would ask that the council seek the advice of the city attorney.
Okay. And since I guess I will, because I'm asking a question on somebody else's question. We had a citizen bring up an issue. Which one of these affects the issue that they brought up?
Council Bill 52.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta?
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to the first reading, I will be recusing myself.
Thank you for reminding me. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve
51.
Council Bill 51, marijuana tax rate increase.
Second.
Second? Okay. Any more discussion? No? Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show. 6 ayes and 1 recusal.
All right, thank you. Next is Council Bill 52, implementation of annual marijuana sales tax increase. Staff recommends council approve an ordinance directing staff to include a 1.5% increase in additional sales tax imposed upon the sale of retail marijuana in the annual budget up to a maximum of 15% unless otherwise directed by the City Council. Acting Finance Director again, Director Maria Sabata is here to answer questions. And Mayor Pro Tem will start out.
Is this the first increase in tax that we have had, or that the 15% did the original 3.5%, which is what I believe we got the first year, was that included in the 15%?
I believe, my understanding is yes, it is part of that. So it's the total tax rate. So currently we have our 3.5% sales tax plus the 3.5% for the marijuana, 7%. We would add 1.5% each year up to 15%. So in effect, it's included. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barentine.
Guess what my question is going to be?
I think I can.
Yes, you do. Could you explain the concern that they have, that they brought forward with this?
Okay. Before I do that, I'd like to just read the conclusion so we're clear about what this is, if that's okay.
Great.
Thank you.
So staff in this particular Council Bill 52 is recommending that council approve this council bill, directing staff to include a 1.5% increase in additional sales tax imposed upon the sale of retail marijuana in the annual budget, up to a maximum of 15%, unless otherwise directed by the City Council. Establishing the tax rate for retail marijuana as part of the budgeting process provides an opportunity for the public to comment on the tax rate during the public hearing for the budget. The reason that I think it's important to mention that is that a specific narrative was included in the budget documentation that talked about the fact that the 1.5% increase that you're talking about tonight was included in the budget. So I just want to be clear that there was an opportunity for the public to talk about that inclusion in the budget at that time. Secondly, in response to the citizen's question, the only information that I can provide that I believe is relevant to the comments that were made is a captured information related to the sales tax that is charged currently in the city of Sheridan. It is 3.5% plus 5% excise tax, which is 8.5%. If that can answer your question. It will be comparable to our sales tax rate.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Questions? Councilmember Barentine, one more?
Then I guess I need to ask the city attorney, what was it about what we are passing tonight that anyone would believe is actionable in court then? What part of this?
I'm not going to try to interpret what other people might think is actionable in court. My job is to put forth what I think is a legal action on behalf of the city, and that's what we've done. The initiative ordinance that was passed is very odd for the state of Colorado, and what it did was the taxpayers within the city approved a tax levy of 15%. And then the voters within that same initiative said that it would be enacted incrementally up to 1.5% per year at the discretion of council. But there's no method in place for saying how council has to uses that discretion to increase that tax. There's nothing in place.
And it's not my intention to put you in any awkward positions.
Well, let me finish my answer because I'm about halfway through. So what this ordinance is staff's attempt to put a method forward to the city council for implementing their discretionary increase, to make it clear that it's going to happen as part of the budgetary process every year. If council has a different manner that they would like to address this increase, council certainly is welcome to provide suggestions. But there is no method in place other than through the budgetary process. So this has been brought forth as basically clarifying that this will happen as part of the budgetary process.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
So if this happens as part of the budgetary process, if individuals or businesses had concerns, they could come forward in the public hearing for the budget and address those concerns. If this is set in motion, it would be known ahead of time that this is going to come up yearly until we reach the 15%. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
And with that, if there are concerns, at the next budget cycle, council could decide not to implement the 1.5 for that year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Barentine.
On a normal process, a tax increase would just come up as an ordinance and council would vote on it for that.
So it's my understanding, just based on what we heard from the city attorney, the vote has already taken place for up to 15%.
By the citizens, so we have that opportunity, but we could do it each year through an ordinance or just a vehicle coming to us so that it was noticed and we would vote on it specifically for this tax.
You could do it that way as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That does clarify it for me. Thanks.
Could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve Council Bill 52.
Second?
I'll second.
I think Councilmember Wink got to it first. First up for discussion is Councilmember Barentine.
I will, at this point, be voting against it because I believe that any tax increase, whether it's for pop or pot, doesn't matter to me. I don't want it on an automatic cycle, and I think I understand this a little clearer now. I don't think that it's onerous for the council to just get information and vote to go ahead and include the increase for whatever increase they're going to make, and it just makes it a more open, transparent process. So I'll be voting against it.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be recusing myself from this vote, similar to the first.
Thank you, and we will support that. Any other comments? Seeing none, please vote on CB 52, implementation of an annual marijuana sales tax increase.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 5 ayes and 1 nay. The 1 nay being Councilmember Barentine and 1 recusal, Member Cuesta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 11C1, a presiding municipal judge salary discussion. And as presiding judge Joe Jefferson comes up, I'm going to ask everyone to stand and stretch. Because I need to.
Good idea. Good evening, Council. Honorable Mayor and Council, it's my pleasure to address the public and Council tonight in an effort to better...
Would the judge like to wait till everybody sits down?
It would be nice.
Yeah, okay.
The intent
Tell
was
me when, Ms.
We've
Mayor.
been here since. It's all right. You're used to this.
Actually, we were all standing in respect for you, Your Honor.
Isn't that
Thank
nice?
you.
All right. Everybody's had a bit of a... So go ahead. Please state your name and what you're doing here. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to address the public and Council tonight. In an effort to provide better communication to the public, both our bosses, I'd like to provide a very brief overview on our municipal court and highlight just a few important changes before I address Council business for the evening, the 2019 salary for the presiding municipal judge. Our court was established by charter in 1959, and we enjoy the only truly publicly elected judge in the state. I believe this ensures trust in the local judiciary that is truly independent, as illustrated in our organizational chart that shows the people at the very top and council and our presiding judge on the very next line, illustrating accountability back to the people that they represent. Our presiding judge has the challenge of being the full-time judge and overseeing a large city department. Our court's mission is to promote and ensure a high quality of life, economic vitality, and a uniquely desirable community identity by providing ethical, effective, and efficient judicial services in an impartial and fair forum to ensure all due process rights. One of the court's primary functions is to deter and punish crimes. This helps create, define, and enforce social norms through a legal public process. However, our court also has a restorative and rehabilitative function. On an individual level, this is accomplished by interventions for individuals who find themselves on self-destructive, violent, or harmful paths. Our goal is not just to punish crimes, but also to refocus an individual on education, personal responsibility, and rehabilitation. On a community level, this restorative function provides opportunities for victims to play a meaningful role in the legal process, including its sentencing, and also provides opportunities for the defendants to make restitution and reduce social fear among neighbors that strengthens our community. Much of this rehabilitation and restoration is accomplished through traditional sentencing like restitution, as well as alternative sentencing and newly expanded constructive community service options. This creates a true win-win-win for the defendant, any victim, and the community as a whole. This is accomplished by providing opportunities for the defendant to make up for a wrong committed and get resources, for the victim to be restored, and for the community to benefit as a whole by helping plug a gap in social services in the community at little or no cost to the community by partnering with local nonprofits to accomplish the shared goal of reduced recidivism here in Englewood. We've enjoyed great success with our renewed partnerships since meeting with the All Health Network, the 180 Network, HOPE, Englewood Public Schools, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Colorado, local faith-based groups, and many others. City Square was one of the best partners in this area with the unbelievable amount of resources available, and with their recent closing, we will miss them serving Englewood. All of our partners have agreed that we have a shared mission to rehabilitate defendants and provide resources to that end. We now have both a community service and resource guide available to all defendants and everyone at the front counter. We actually have one specifically for U.S. military veterans and another one that's being finalized for juveniles. These efforts are not an effort to minimize personal responsibility for defendants, but actually increases accountability. One way is by allowing community service in lieu of imposed fines and costs, rather than simply a waiver or reduction based on inability to pay. 2018 was a busy year for us at the court, with over 9,000 total case filings, about 900,000 in total collections, and total budget for 2018 of about $1.1 million. We expect to be substantially under budget as financial auditing is finalized. The department is made up of 6 full-time clerks, 1 part-time clerk, 2 management employees, our director, our court administrator, and assistant court administrator, including plus me and 5 on-call associate judges. Total filings are about the same year over year, but we did see more cases that require a hearing with a judge. Total hearings were up 20% year over year. So we are busier than ever and continue to do more with current staffing. Revenue increased nearly 1/3 year over year, but just FYI, the increase in revenue is not by design, but more of a byproduct of the judicial system and reflection of the case mix, including more traffic cases. Revenue generation for the city is not a court goal. Rather, we focus on the individual circumstances of each case. Also, I'm proud to say I was able to reduce associate judge spending even with a 50% pay increase for associate judges year over year, moving their pay from $50 to $75 an hour. We are by far the busiest municipal court in Arapahoe County, besides Aurora, who operates their own jail facility. I'm very proud of our staff and their efforts to keep the court running with great fairness and efficiency. In an effort to be brief, I want to highlight just 3 major themes for change in 2018 and 19 for the court. The themes are: 1, improving service delivery, 2, improving efficiency, and 3, ensuring fairness. In an effort to improve service, we are currently in an RFP process for a new case management system that will help improve internal functionality. Also, very importantly, will provide some external functions that will help improve service. We're exploring text reminders, web-based docket, and other helpful functions. We'll also redo our web pages in 2019 to provide more information to the public. We're also now providing court-appointed counsel to in-custody defendants as required by new law, and we now provide an attorney, generally at the Arapahoe County Jail, to those in custody for our daily 1 p.m. in-custody docket. That's a video docket. Council just approved the new contract for these services tonight. 2, we're always looking for ways to improve efficiency, and of course that new software will help a ton with that. We also added an add-on docket on Wednesday at 11:30 for those with active warrants who are unable to post bond but want to proactively resolve their issues. Defendants see the judge for bond consideration, request to have their warrants quashed, or turn themselves in rather than simply waiting to be arrested. The overwhelming majority of these cases are not serious offenses and are simply reset without involving PD or Arapahoe County Jail. Finally, we're trying to improve fairness or perceived fairness of the court. To that end, I underwent a large warrant project quashing about 10% of the active warrants here in Englewood that were based on money-only issues from fines and costs that were sent to collections to avoid jail on simply debtor prison issues. We are also part of a trend of national justice reform to reduce bail amounts and default to personal recognizance bonds when little or no history of failure to appear and no serious offense alleged. We are ordering many more small, cash-only bonds as low as $50 to $100. We're also attempting to use more jail alternatives for those that are a good fit for recently improved resources like in-home detention, work release, weekender programs, and mental health and substance abuse programs offered by Arapahoe County Jail and private entities. Finally, I am providing additional information to associate judges to ensure continuing educational opportunities with our next meeting tomorrow night. It's been an honor to serve as a presiding judge for the last year. I'd like to thank the public for the opportunity to serve. I said when I left council that it was the most rewarding experience of my life, but this job is quickly giving that one a run for its money. Being judge is extremely challenging, but also rewarding work. The salary of the position of our presiding judge is the business for this evening. Recall that the council is setting the salary for the position and not me personally. I provided council with an updated salary survey from HR. All of those listed were in the last survey done in 2016, besides Golden, Littleton, and Lakewood. Golden was added since HR had it available, but it is likely not a very good comparable, given that they only hold court once a week. I reached out to Littleton and Lakewood personally, as I thought they would be comparables, good comparables, knowing what I know about their operations. Lakewood is a full-time court, and Littleton handles domestic violence cases similar to us. Unfortunately, HR was unable to provide updated information for 6 of the 11 requested jurisdictions, but I think the survey generally shows that our salary is below market, which is acceptable to some degree for an elected position. Needless to say, I personally do not do this job for the money, so your decision tonight will not impact how I do my job for the citizens and community as a whole. Although the doctrine of separation of powers dictates that we have separate, clearly distinct role, I am currently exploring how to better communicate with the public, and I'm open to your ideas or feedback. I'm also happy to answer any questions or address any concerns at this time.
All right, thank you. Council members, do you want to ask any questions? Councilmember Barentine will kick it off.
Does the position come with, never was clear about this before, are there any other benefits that are paid for the judge?
There are some forms of deferred compensation for this position, basically similar to a director-level compensation, including some health benefits and retirement benefits.
Okay. Do you have kind of an idea of how those are comparable? I mean, is that the same thing like you were offered on councils for health benefits?
No, it'd be more like a director-level benefit package.
I mean, we all think we're directors. And is there any other compensation besides that provided?
I do get a $50 reimbursement for technology that totals, I think, $1,200 for the year.
Okay. And then you said that the court is one of the busiest ones in the community. Are you providing are you able to provide some regular feedback to council on kind of what's going on with the court as far as that? I think the reason I'm asking the question, and I do apologize that it's kind of convoluted, is that I'm a little, this is the first time that truly this has been done legally. Before we had executive sessions with an elected official, we shouldn't have been doing that, but Vince came the last time, but then that's when he left. This is the first time publicly we are getting a report from the court like this, and I greatly appreciate the work that you've done for that and to do that for transparency's sake. But I would like in the future, I hope that maybe this council can discuss having the salary piece of it, since it is part of the budget, as part of the budget discussion. So maybe we can do that and alleviate at least some piece of
Councilmember Barrington, do you have a
part.
question at this point? We'll move into a discussion after the motion is made.
Yeah, I think that's what I was asking. Would you like to see this moved at a time when we were doing the budget? Because I'm a little concerned that we're doing a process like this after the budgeting process, and that might put an undue kind of burden on both of us.
Yeah, I'm open to the feedback from the council. When would be the best time to bring this forward? Keep in mind, I waited until the 11th hour in an attempt to try to get as much information to the council as possible. So today was the absolute last date that I could appear in front of you. But yeah, open to hearing or deciding how we want to handle that moving forward.
One last question then. Who did you request the information from, and why was there a delay in getting it to you?
I'm not really sure exactly what the reasons are. I mean, I submitted the request to HR, and I think October 15th I provided it part of the report. I know that we haven't done this salary survey in a couple of years, so I don't want to point fingers or anything like that. Honestly, I felt like the information provided I think is adequate, but you tell me what the council feels, and I'm happy to try to provide as much information as you think would be helpful.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? I do have a question, and so on these comparables that you have, the benefits are not clear. So you're actually comparing hour by hour, but you're not an hourly person. Are the ones that you're saying are hourly, like the $99 an hour, those are actually non-benefited people?
I believe in Littleton that is the case because it's not a full-time court. It's a 2.5. I think they're moving to 3 days here in 2019. But most of the other presiding judges, particularly from the jurisdictions that were provided in the 2016 report, would be more comparable in full-time courts and preside. And again, these are presiding judges.
And secondly, how was your salary set when you started the judgeship?
The position that was set in the salary that was set in 2016 for the position by council.
So you assumed the salary of the long-term judge that had been in place.
I assumed the salary for the position that was set by council in 2016.
Yep. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear because somebody asked me, why have we not done this before? Because that's the way it was done. We set it based on what it was before, and you just assumed it from then and continued on.
Yeah.
Right? Continued on.
I don't know if council wants to.
I'm not reading. Don't read anything in. That is how it happened. I just don't want people to think we missed the ball a year ago.
We didn't reconsider the salary for the position in 2017.
Right.
I think is a fair statement.
Correct. Yes. Councilmember Martinez.
Yes, we did.
I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? We considered in 2016 for the 2017.
Correct.
We did not consider it in 2017 for the 2018.
Right. When you were
so
newly
there was a
elected.
0% increase for that year.
Right.
Yes, I had similar questions from folks about that process. So. And I also had the same question about benefits, so, but it's already been asked. And then you provided a lot of information tonight that's not in our packet. Would you be able to provide that to us as well? A lot of this.
I don't have that in writing, candidly. I had some notes that I was just kind of going after, but I hope to create a public record, again, in an attempt to report to my constituencies.
Okay. Yeah, it just seemed like to me the packet was a little bit light. I mean, I really do appreciate the comparables, but we didn't have really anything else to go on. So I think those stats that you talked about tonight would be really, really helpful.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And again, I'm open to communicating about how you want to handle this moving forward.
Councilmember Barrington has a question.
You are the only elected judge. The rest of these people are employees. I'm pretty sure they get benefits. So.
Sorry?
You are the only elected judge in the state of Colorado. All of the other comparables are employees. They are employees to the councils or commissioners that appoint them or hire them.
What is your question, Councilmember Barrington?
one thing that I would like to have seen put on here is maybe a salary, a range. That's what Vince used to do. Not that the public would know that because it was done in private, but some kind of range of what you believe that it should be in. Do you think that the $75 that your associate judges currently make, are you wanting to go somewhere in there? What are you asking for that you believe would be an acceptable range for the position?
You know, I'm recommending a 4% increase. Candidly, I don't feel good about anything bigger than that. I think that, you know, you could argue that an increase substantially larger than that would bring us closer to market. But, you know, again, I think the elected nature of this position, you know, can leave some little bit of room for wiggle and for value for the constituents. You know, addressing the real quick benefit issue, you know, my guess is that a lot of these have much larger deferred compensation packages than we see here. Obviously, you know, I don't receive much in the way of deferred compensation compared to other executive level employees. You know, I'm not getting any sort of, you know, car allowance or any of these types of additional things that we do for a lot of our other executive level employees. And again, it's more the basic line benefits that you receive as a director for health and contributions to the, you know, retirement plan.
Thank you.
Sorry, I got a little off topic there.
No.
Are there further questions from council? I would entertain a motion to approve. Councilmember Martinez, do you have a
I
question?
just have one last question. Your Judge Atencio served for what? Was it 19? 20 years? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I move to approve to increase the judge's salary by 4% to $143,831.17.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Discussion?
I do apologize. He did have the amount on here, so I do apologize for that.
Councilmember Cuesta?
Thank you, Mayor. The timing on this certainly isn't. The timing on this certainly isn't great, considering my recusal just now. I doubt it's common knowledge, but I know I discussed it on the dais my first night being sworn in. I've known Joe since grade school. We have a long-standing friendship. I see Joe outside of work. I certainly can maintain objectivity on this, but I do think that even the perception that I'm voting on a friend's raise is a step too far for me, and I would like to recuse myself from this vote.
I need council to weigh in on this one a little bit because
I would.
All of us are friends, and I served for 8 years with this man, so it would be a little bit bizarre for any of us not to do the same. So
Right.
I'm going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
All right, and that's what I was going to weigh in on also. All of us are friends of his, perhaps not as long as you are, but we're sitting in positions where we make these decisions, and so I'm not comfortable with you recusing yourself on this.
Councilmember Barentine?
I don't think we want to get into a competition on who's Joe's better friend. I consider myself a friend of his. We may not have played ball together, but I think when we start to put that into the mix as a consideration that somehow that if we're friends with somebody that we cannot be objective and make decisions is going to limit your ability to vote a lot. So I don't agree with that being able to abstain.
I will continue in that vein with anybody else who wants to respond to that, but there may be other conversations. So I'll let Councilmember Cuesta respond, and then...
You bet. If that's the case, then I would challenge the perception of the optics of some of the folks up here. If everybody thinks that it's okay that we're voting on friends' salaries and salary increases, I assure you, considering the accusations we've heard from good old boys and such things being lodged up here in the past, this certainly lends itself to that narrative. I certainly do not want to be part of that narrative. Again, I can maintain objectivity through this, but again, I think this sets itself up well for those who would like to say you're too close to increasing your friend's salary.
Councilmember Wink?
I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Member Barentine. We all have a relationship with Joe Jefferson, and despite the length, or the differences in length, we're here. We have the data in front of us. We have a decision to make based on, as objectively as we make other decisions that may affect people. Maybe I'm friends with my next door neighbor making a decision on the district. So I think these matters will come up. It's not frequent, but I would like us all to to chime in on this vote.
Councilmember Sierra.
Yeah, Member Cuesta, you've shown time and again that you put great thought into every decision that you make. And so I have no concerns that you won't do what's best for the city of Englewood. So I would prefer that you do vote on the issue.
Councilmember Martinez.
I would agree with much of what's been said up here. Each of us has a relationship with Joe Jefferson. He was our former mayor, served our community for a long time. Now he's serving in a different capacity. We have very clear lines of separation. He is a municipal judge. We are council. It's very clear separation. And like Member Sierra said, I think you always put great thought into your decisions, so I would prefer that you weigh in on this as well.
Councilmember Cuesta.
I rarely like to be this frank, but I think you guys are getting this entirely wrong. We have never voted on a salary raise before. I've been up here for a year, and we've never said, I'm going to give you more money. And to say that we have an existing relationship with somebody, and we're voting right now to give them more money or not, I think could present an optics issue to some citizens. I am not comfortable making this vote, and I would ask, can I abstain? Do I need your permission? To the city attorney, do I need permission to abstain from this vote?
According to Bob's rules of procedure, yes, you do.
Thank you, city attorney. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Cuesta, I've been in your shoes, and I was not granted an abstention when I thought I deserved one, and everyone voted against it, and that may happen here. I do want to say in response that we have been voting on salaries in the budget that we just approved, and you approved that budget, so you approved budgets for everyone in the room to actually have an increase in salary. And you may not have known it specifically, but you did. So we all are involved in that all the time. It's a tough one when you really know someone well and you spend that much time, but I get it, and I get the values behind it. Councilmember Martinez.
I also want to add that this is a little bit clumsy and awkward. We haven't really formalized our process on how to handle this with the judge, and it's a little bit late, considering that we did everything else in the budget months ago. So it is a little bit clunky and confusing, and I would like us to, however we decide to move forward ongoing, that we all agree on this process beforehand and make it a little bit cleaner.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, and I'll leave it after this. And I do disagree with the sentiment that by providing money for raises in the budget, that it's apples to apples here. Those will be administered by their supervisors giving reviews. They will be giving personal raises to those folks based upon performance. That is what we're being asked for here. We are being the supervisor, essentially. We're giving a raise or not to this person. And I disagree with the way that this is being put before council. Now, I understand this is the process as it is right now, but I do not think this is a good way to go about it. And I think that there's a casualness that I'm kind of surprised about, that people don't see that there are citizens that could take issue with how this is being performed. Thank you. And I will leave it at that. And thank you for entertaining this.
Councilmember Cuesta, I totally can see it. And this is very awkward. And when we did it the last time for the judge, I've done it several times now, it was hard. And we did have a public session for a study session with the judge before we actually came forward with the amount, which I would have preferred for this to have a little bit more time to look at it and to see it with a little bit more information. If it was submitted on October 18th or 15th or whatever, and there's been time between then and now to actually provide us with a lot more information about what the court's done and the data and the 20% increase of cases, if that was this year or the year before, I would have liked all that right tonight. But I think that is unfortunately what we have to do. It's a weird thing we have to do, and it's not a review of them. The voters decide who's going to be the judge or not. We set the salary, and that's by charter. Councilmember Barentine?
It is the only way that it can happen. This body is the only one who spends the taxpayers' money. There is no one else that can make the decision on the judge. It is awkward because he is elected, as the mayor has pointed out, because the citizens have already given his performance evaluation. They elected him. So I do understand that piece of it, but there is nobody else to do it. We cannot go back to doing it illegally by having an executive session. You cannot have an executive session on an elected official. It was normally done in January and was for years. So the process of this, as we're moving forward to following the law, and I greatly appreciate the presentation that was made and the information that was provided and what was done, but as moving forward, maybe now that we're following the law, doing it publicly in the open so that we can have the transparency, we can maybe move this to prior to the budgeting, and I think that would make it a little less awkward for everybody.
Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I just wanted to share that, you know, most people, when they get an evaluation, they don't work for a public body. But, you know, the municipal judge does, and I greatly appreciate his openness and transparency in coming forward, and that is just the nature of this being employed for the citizens. We have to be open and transparent before them, and I believe there's justification here that we can vote based on the data that we've been given, and the truth is, we're just deciding what his pay is going to be. He will come up for re-election in 3 more years, and then the public will decide whether he stays in that position. But I think we're making it much more difficult than we need to.
Any further comments, Council? I did want to make, this is apart from any person, and it's hard to do because there's a person in the room with this. I'm a little bit more inclined to go with the average of what the HR raise was this year, which I thought was 2.5%, I think, and although it's based on merit, and so there may be some high and low. Is that correct?
3.5.
3.5. Okay, so then this is 4. Is that right? So I would prefer to just go with that and make it what the city did. That would be one way Councilmember Questa to get off the hook, and just say it's what we did throughout the city, and then next year we start this in a new way. Councilmember Wink.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate the data provided to us, and given 4% still puts the salary for the judge below the comparable full-time judges that are doing similar work, I would still like to support the request for the 4%.
I think it was Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I would be comfortable also with the 3.5% since we did that citywide, and we really did not have a lot of information other than similar or other cities and their salaries.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem.
Most fair.
Sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I would support the 4% because not only is it comparable to the other areas, but currently, even at the 4%, well, no. Actually, I believe this hourly rate on here is before the 4% raise. The I forget what you call them, associate judges. Their benefits are, well, their salary. Their salary is $75 an hour. So I will be supporting this.
Councilmember Berentine.
For the time that I was on between 2003 and 2007 and now serving, I've seen the transition for it. And previously when the judge asked for the salary, that's all he handed us was one sheet of paper and asked for the salary. So the fact of the information is maybe a little sparse, might have a little more to do with the lack of our human resources getting back to you, and I apologize for that. They're probably pretty busy with city manager stuff and everything. But the transparency that's been brought by this process and getting a whole report on what's going on with the court, I greatly appreciate that both the council and the public have a lot more information about what's going on. The end result of what we're talking about is $5,000, $5,531.97, and I believe that just for the information that was provided in the report, the additional transparency, and how we're going forward in the future with this position, that is a reasonable request.
All right. Looks like there's no other comments. Let's vote.
Mayor, could you clarify who the second was?
Who was it that
I think
seconded?
it was Councilmember Wink, wasn't it?
No, you did.
I made the motion.
Yeah. Who seconded it? Councilmember?
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. All right, next is 11C2. This is a request for postponement of the first reading of the Alta Englewood Station PUD District Plan. Here to present is Planning Manager Wade Burkholder. The notification of postponement on the first reading until January 22nd, 2019 is the proposed date.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. The request before you is to postpone the first first reading of the ordinance for the Alta Englewood Station PUD District Plan to January 22nd. There is ongoing and has been ongoing dialogue between the applicant and staff, and we are requesting the additional time to make sure the ordinance that you all review and make a decision on is the most complete and best application that it can be. There are no deadlines being risked here. If we do go ahead and postpone, everything will continue on cue on January 22nd. And we did go ahead and re-notify all of the property owners that were notified of the public hearing of the request for postponement this evening. And staff hasn't had any questions from the public with regard to the postponement. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell has a question.
So my question is, does this normally automatically just come forward at the next council meeting?
The typical procedure is, yes, it would come before you the next meeting after the public hearing. There is nothing in the ordinance that requires that, but that would be a normal flow of procedure.
So is there anything that requires the postponement? I mean, coming forward with a postponement?
We just wanted to use this opportunity to notify you all, just in case there were questions as to why it didn't follow that normal process. So we wanted to just keep you all informed of where we're at with the application.
Thank you.
Councilmember Barentine has a question.
I do have a question why it's being postponed. We're being told that there's additional conversation going on and questions, but we had a public hearing, and then to keep moving this out, are we going to be notified of additional information? Because it's a little sparse. Why?
Well, at the first reading, City Council has the option to either approve the application as was presented, deny the application, or refer the application back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for modifications to that application. So those are your options that will be coming forward to you. There is dialogue going on as to what may be changing, and based on the questions you all presented at the public hearing, such as what is a significant modification to the PUD plan that would require the site plan to come back before you. So we're working all that out. So it very well may be that the new information and the new the conversations we're having will warrant this to go back to Planning and Zoning Commission if you all choose. But we're trying to make the application the best it can be and answer those questions that we can based on what your comments were at the public hearing.
And I guess that's what I'm asking, is the material changes seems to be just an example, and that there seems to be some other questions that you're going to be addressing that we haven't been made aware of. Are we going to be made aware of all of the issues that you are currently discussing and working out?
At first reading, you would.
We'll be told everything, so because I'm just nervous that we had the public hearing and then you're saying there's issues, but everything that's being discussed, you're going to bring forward and let us know. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Cuesta.
So I'm having trouble understanding who requested the postponement. The applicant did. So you would have brought it forward this night or tonight had they not requested it.
That's what the original time frame was to bring it back at first reading tonight.
Are you able to share any more detail as to why they requested it?
There's some details such as they want to match the PUD district plan to what their site plan is actually being proposed as. So, for example, you had in the district plan a maximum height of 100 feet allowable. Their site plan is really only about 50 or 60 feet. So they want to make sure that that's more in line to hopefully alleviate any concerns there might be. I think a comment was made that there could be a 100-foot liquor store going in on this site. So they want to tailor what their site plan actually is proposing to the district plan. And there are several of those examples in the district plan that they're looking at changing, discussing, and whatnot.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
And if there are changes, either we can send it back to planning and zoning, but if we choose not to, would we have another public hearing?
Yeah. Let me step in here. What I'm understanding is I drafted a first ordinance, and the developer looked at the ordinance and felt that there might be ways of clarifying some of council's stated concerns in the public hearing through their site plan, and they're wanting the opportunity to make sure that those things are done. If they bring back any proposed changes, it will have to go back. Those changes have to go back to planning and zoning for public hearing. The only thing that you can vote on is what was already recommended by planning and zoning. It's different than what happened tonight. What you were working on tonight with ADU was a text amendment, and a text amendment, you don't need to have multiple public hearings. But this is an amendment specific to a single property, so it would require additional hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Barentine. Well, that cleared it up. I mean, the language starts getting done between site plan and development plan. There was no site plan presented. So,
do you have a further question, Councilmember Barentine?
I realize it's getting later. You're getting quicker and quicker to interrupt me. Could the city attorney answer whether, when they move it, if they were to come back and say, we want to change it from the 100 feet to 50 feet, you're saying that would be a significant change that would trigger it going back to planning and zoning?
At that point, when it comes back, we will bring back an ordinance. If at the time that the ordinance is presented, the applicant says, we would like the opportunity to make these changes to our plan to conform with the questions and concerns council raised, you can, instead of adopting the ordinance, direct it back to planning and zoning for planning and zoning's review and further public hearing.
That wouldn't just be triggered by the percentage of change? Because it's 100 foot now, does that just trigger it automatically, or would it take a vote?
You will have to vote. The council will have to vote.
In that case, then I would, I need to know whether they're going to, they intend to bring forward a site plan along with it or not, if you just include that in the information you guys are discussing.
Could I have
Thank you so much for your patience, Mayor.
Could I have a motion to approve this so we can get on to a conversation?
I move to approve, what's that, 11C2, request for postponement of the first reading of the Alta Englewood Station PUD District Plan.
Second.
Thank you. In a second. All right. Any further conversation? Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Next on the agenda is 11C3, Professional Services Agreement for Dartmouth Bridge Design Engineer. Staff recommends City Council. I found one. Thank you. Approved by motion a professional services agreement with Stanley Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $410,510 for the preparation of construction plans, details and specifications, and local agency coordination with the Colorado Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation and widening of the West Dartmouth Avenue Bridge over the South Platte River. Here to present is Engineering Manager Paul Weller. He's here to answer questions.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Yes, I'm here to recommend your approval of this contract for the design of the improvements to the Dartmouth Bridge. This contract is a result of an extensive process as directed by the IGA that we have with CDOT, essentially due to the federal funds that are involved. So with that, I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Weller? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Costa.
Yes, I did have one, and I'm getting to the budget here. The total budget for the project is $2.8 million, which consists of 1.5 from the Dartmouth Bridge Public Improvement Fund, and then 1.3 in state and federal. I was under the impression this was a 50-50 split, and I must, am I off on that?
Yeah, it's never been a 50-50 split.
Thank you. How was that decided? Who was going to pay what share of it?
That was determined formulaic by CDOT.
And those were just the totals that they reached, I guess the 1.5 evenly from Englewood, and then the 1.
Well, the 1.5 million was the initial dedication of funds by the City Council based on an original grant of about $500,000 by CDOT. So that gave the total project a budget of about $2 million, which the Public Works Department thought at the time would be the funds that would be required. So then we got an additional $800,000 grant from CDOT, so that makes up the about the $1.7 million that we were granted.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Do we pay some of this and then get reimbursed after the fact?
Correct.
Could I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve agenda item 11C3.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine.
Thank you very much for your work on this. I know that it was a lot putting this together, and the bridge certainly needs it. We've been talking about it for several years. I know this is quite a process. Because of that, and because of the scrutiny of the process, this got looked at closer. So I appreciate the work that you did on it, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. The last item here on the number 11 is 11C4, resolution to accept Colorado Department of Transportation demand management grant funding for the Oxford Avenue first and last mile connections, bicycle lanes, and Sharrow markings project. And here to present tonight is Planner 2, John Voberl.
Good evening, council members. I'm here tonight seeking a resolution of support for the acceptance of federal transportation grant funding for a bicycle infrastructure improvement project along Oxford Avenue, running from Clarkson Street to Windermere Street, terminating at the Oxford Light Rail Station. The Oxford Avenue project was originally identified as part of a major bicycle loop in the 2013 stationary master plan, connecting Englewood Station and Oxford Station to the medical district. Subsequently, also at the same time, a few years later, in the Englewood Walk and Wheel Master Plan, the Oxford Avenue leg of that project was identified as a quick win project, one of about a half a dozen that were seen as low-hanging fruit that would be easy to design and implement. So fast forward a couple years later, we started working on designing some of these different legs of these projects with OV Consultants. And so OV Consultants was doing a design for the Oxford Avenue, what it would look like. And at the time, this Transportation Demand Management Opportunity Grant came up in December of 2017. And the Transportation Demand Management Grant Opportunity is focused on making first and last mile connections to transit stations. And so this Oxford Avenue project, of course, has a transit station at the end of it, and so we thought it'd be a very good candidate for this type of grant opportunity. So we made an application to Dr. Cog at the end of 2017 and was awarded the opportunity to accept these types of funds in February, and then it was approved in May by the Dr. Cog board. And then during about the time of September, we started working with CDOT to develop an IGA. And if you support this resolution to accept these funds, an IGA will be coming forward to you in 2 weeks from now. Just a little bit about the description of what this project would be is from Clarkson to Broadway would feature share markings, and from Broadway to Windermere would keep the 3 travel lanes intact and redesign the shared parking lane and bicycle lane that is there today, defining that space better as a 7-foot parking lane and 6-foot bicycle lanes. In terms of the financials, $87,138 would be coming from CDOT. The City of Englewood would provide a local match of $18,114, which would be split by Public Works and Community Development through their professional services budget for a total project amount of $105,282. Public Works would take on the role of managing the installation of the project, while Community Development would tag team and work on grant administration. At this time, I would hope that you could support this project going forward, and I will try to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Will there be any, I know on Oxford, west from Broadway to Windermere, there are several areas where there is concrete and the road is narrowed. Are they going to be doing anything with that?
The Public Works Department recommended that those concrete pieces that are on the side that narrow the roadway, they should stay in place, and that the bicycle lanes will go around them between those concrete barriers and the curb.
Okay.
They will stay in place.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I am excited about this project and will be supporting it. I just have a question. It says the proposal also includes funding for additional bicycle parking at the Oxford Light Rail Station. Do we have any idea how many additional bicycle parking spaces we would get there?
I don't really have that number. It kind of depends on how they will be designed and how we can fit them in. But we've reserved about, I believe it's somewhere between $7,000 to $9,000 for bicycle parking. I think we can substantially increase what is there right now.
Yeah, there's very little there now, and we get lots of feedback from, we need more bicycle parking there, so I'm really glad to see that in here.
Councilmember Valentine.
This came before us, I thought before. Was it because the grant just wasn't ready then? Or because I remember that there was some significant concern about the concrete, that it left such a narrow area there that it was actually kind of made it a little unsafe. So if we're not mitigating that, how are we going to deal with that? Because that becomes a very narrow area. I mean, we heard from people who had come from Denver, and they put them on the other side of that concrete barrier, and then it doesn't get plowed. It's kind of dangerous where they're coming out from cars. So I thought that's why we kind of didn't go with it before. But how are we going to mitigate the safety issue for that? I mean, because we're encouraging people now to use it as a bike lane. I mean, a lot of them do already, and it's already kind of sketchy. But how are we going to deal with that?
People will still have the choice to ride outside of the bicycle lane. So if they see obstruction in between the concrete barrier and the curb, it will be up to their judgment to avoid that.
Is there enough for the car then, even with that concrete there, to follow the law and have a 3-foot width between you and a bicycle in order to get around them?
Where those concrete, I can't think of the name of what they call them, but
traffic calming
piece. There is no park. You can't really park there, so there should be adequate areas to move around it.
No, I'm not talking about parking. I'm talking about the area. You're supposed to have 3 feet. Is that correct, ma'am? Okay. You're supposed to have 3 feet between your car driving and to a bicycle moving. Will those concrete, if they leave them there, will we have enough space?
There will be adequate room.
Huh?
There will be adequate room.
Okay.
We have our consultant, Chris Vogel, saying an engineer has confirmed that there will be adequate room.
Okay, so everybody will be leaving. All right, thanks for sharing.
All right, I think Director Deandra is here. She might be able to provide a little bit more information.
Yes, just comment on the plowing. We do intend to plow that area if we haven't in the past, so that once it's actually signed as a bike lane with the markings and the signage, that would be our intent, so that issue of not plowing during the wintertime would be overcome. We also, around those traffic calming devices, we would actually, there's not any signage right now for no parking, so we'd establish that so that we still have the room for the bike lane.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve agenda item 11C4.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Right, further discussion? If not, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, the general discussion, Mayor's choice. First of all, I want to thank you all for the last regular meeting that we had, which was December 17th, and was probably one of the the longest meeting I've ever been in here, and was not proud of it, and want to make sure that moving forward we have some ways in which we agree on how to handle long meetings like that. I told city staff the next morning, and Mayor Pro Tem was with me, that I won't do that ever again. And so if we cannot budge something, we're just going to call it and have to set another meeting. It's just too much for you all and for all of us and our citizens that are trying to pay attention, as well as those who have to stay and present. So we, the next morning after that, in our mayor-manager meeting, had a conversation and brainstormed. Dorothy was there, and so was Allison. And Mayor Pro Tem and I, and we came up with a bunch of ideas, and then they also asked staff for some ideas of things that they've observed. And so this is just a list of ideas. That's all it is. This is not a decision yet, but I wanted to give this to you as ways to think about how to actually make these meetings efficient, more careful in our decision-making during our freshest time of the evening, and hopefully be more pleasant for all of us. So I don't think we'll be having 1:30 meetings in the future, but I did get 2 calls from mayors the next day that somehow knew we had done that and said, don't feel so bad. I had a 2:30 meeting. I'm like, well, none of us should be there that late. So here are some ideas, and I simply give this to you to ask you to look through it, and because of the hour, I'm going to ask that we actually put this on a study session time, and the very last item is other council ideas to add for effective and efficient meetings, which I'm sure you have as well. So if you haven't thought about that between December 17th and now, then you handled it better than I did. Second thing I have is a permit waiver extension. One of our homeowners in the flooded area this summer has asked that we again extend the permit waivers for the flooded homes that we saw in that area, in any area that day on July 24th, right? So it has to come from a consensus from us. I just can't put it on the agenda. And so I need to hear from you all. Would you like to see come forward an extension of the waivers until the point when we get the study done with the organization, the firm that is doing all the flood study? So my recommendation is that we would waive it until that date when that thing is in and we've got enough information so that we can make a better decision. Maybe we say it's just us. Maybe we just say for another 4 months. It's supposed to be due by, I think, February. We're February or March, but we could say let's extend it till the end of April.
Information are you asking for a vote?
I'm asking for some consensus on whether to ask council to come forward on to actually ask our staff to bring something forward so that we then can vote on it. That's all it is. And I can't just do that on my own.
Do you want us to vote?
No, I just want to take a little sort of a sense.
I support extending it further.
I support it.
Okay. Support. Okay. I do too. Seems like we have enough. Okay, so if staff would bring forward something for us to look at, that would be an extension. Do you need more information than that?
I'm just clarifying that would not go to a study session, just a regular session.
Just a regular meeting. We've already done it once. It'd probably just be changing the dates on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then a couple of other things. There's a doodle in your email box if you haven't seen it for breakfast or lunch with Representative Diane DeGette. So please take a look at that and put your choices in. If you're just knowing you're not going to come at all, you're not interested, if you could at least put that in the doodle so we know that and don't just think you haven't looked at it, because that's helpful too. And then also there was a request in your emails from Acting City Manager Hargrove for the firm interview questions, and so I really do want you to look at that and give us any more questions so that we can put that together to make next week really effective for us all. So I know things get busy and we intend to do that, but it doesn't necessarily get done. So that's all I have tonight. On to Council Member's Choice. Let's start down with Council Member Cuesta.
It came up from several citizens throughout the evening, and something that I got contacted on over the weekend as well, which was the several water main breaks that I was hearing about. And I was hoping that I could get some more information. I mean, I heard anywhere from 2 to 6, depending upon who was speaking in the audience. Now, some I think were overlap, but can you provide more information on the water breaks?
Personally, I'm an expert on water breaks. Not really. But we are investigating it. We had a media request for more information. I will be glad to follow that up as a council request to provide the data that we're already looking for.
Is everything resolved, or are they still active at this time?
I'm not sure about these particular ones,
Thank you.
but I will certainly find out and get that to you as soon as I can.
Very good. Thank you.
Anything further, Councilmember Cuesta?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine.
I have a question about several people called about the apartment building that's going up by Cucina Taco. There was no process. There was no planning and zoning change. Apparently, it went to Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And so I would like to know how they bypassed our normal process in order to go ahead and do something that had such a significant change to that property. I would like to make a council request and ask how do things go to the process on how things go to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals to hear them. Is it the availability for a citizen to just fill out an application, or a developer? They happen to be, it was somewhat concerning to citizens because of who the developer was that they were given this option. Does somebody come in and just fill out an application and the Board of Adjustments and Appeals make a decision? Or is this being decided by staff, and then whether it goes to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals first? Because that's of some concern. And then I would like to know, the second one on this particular issue is exactly how this process happened and what the variance was that was allowed for this building to go up and create this additional density without going through the planning and zoning or the public process. The second one is I would like to get a little bit more information about the loss of investment income so that we just have a public discussion on exactly where we're at with our investment, and the public can hear how we're handling things and what's going on with that, and whether there's really $8 million being sifted away in a year. We need to bring that forward. Also, where is Chief of Police?
Thank you for asking. I was just in contact with him. He's going through some medical issues and hopes to come back this week. He may be in and out. So I was going to contact him tomorrow to get a little more detail and let you guys know.
How long has he been gone?
He's been in and out for 3 or 4 weeks, over the holidays. In the meantime...
There's just always a concern when we start hearing from constituents that they've tried to contact somebody and aren't getting calls back, or where's this person, what's going on? And you don't think too much of it over the holidays, but I really would appreciate that council be notified if somebody's on medical leave or out for some extended period.
He's not on extended medical leave. I will let you know what details I have when he provides those to me. In the meantime, Deputy Chief Sam Watson is available to answer questions for constituents, as I said before.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But it's just awkward when we hear that from constituents rather than council knowing, especially over an extended period of time like that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wink.
No report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I have actually had several people contact me from Traditions just in the last week. I had 2 or 3 of them call me today. I went over there. I took some pictures. The trash in the trash room on the first floor is smelling really bad. It's sitting out. It's not going down the chute because the chute is full. There are roaches there. I'm concerned about that. The other thing, I guess I would like to do a council request on this. I would like a copy of all the permits that have been pulled for the Traditions in the last couple of years. I don't know how long they've been actually open. And the dates of any inspections that took place. There's been extensive water damage, and so I don't know if I'm assuming that they would call to get a permit to fix the water damage. And I'm concerned that there could be mold in the walls that hasn't been taken care of. So I think for right now, that's a starting place. But because we have voted to give them tax breaks and low income, a lot of them are also complaining. I've had complaints for the last year about people in the 60% AMI range are spending 3/4 of their salary on rent. Nobody can live on that. So, I mean, because we have voted to give them tax breaks, I think we need to do some checking on, do they have an accountability? And who are they accountable to?
Mayor Pro Tem, are you finished?
Yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Martinez.
Happy New Year. No report.
All right. And Councilmember Sierra.
I got quite a bit, actually. So in terms of council requests, I guess I'll start with the first one. When Mr. Muth tonight, he mentioned something along the lines of being on an urban lot and mentioning the historical preservation and working, well, I guess just trying to understand exactly if there's any rules that we have to work through historical preservation for urban lots. I may just reach out to Mr. Muth and just try to get an understanding from him. But just wanted, I guess my understanding is that it has to go back through planning and zoning if we had to do anything with urban lots. So just to get some clarification on that, if that's the case. Number 2 is, and I'm probably going to put Madam Attorney on the spot here. So just regarding the Airbnbs, I know that we brought this up previously about short-term rentals and just understanding what type of ordinance we could put in place for short-term rentals. I thought we had a council request for this, but I couldn't find it.
So just, I think December 3rd, I did my first review on planning and zoning's first draft of a code modification for short-term rentals. And this morning, I sent off my second review of that. So it's been going back and forth. I believe it's going to be discussed tomorrow night at the Planning and Zoning meeting. And I do think they're planning on moving forward with the public hearing on that pretty quickly. Okay. But the ADU ordinance went through, basically was developed before I came to Englewood. Subsequent to that, I've asked Planning and Zoning not to take any proposed modifications to the code to public hearing until it's been reviewed by the city attorney's office. So we've been in that process, and I think that'll be coming through to you pretty quickly.
That's great to hear. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I want to echo Member Barentine's comment about just the investment losses, the long-term investments. So I guess just trying to get an understanding about, I remember looking at it when I was first elected to council. I'm thinking the balance of the $8 million loss just has to do with the fact that we have a lot of commercial paper and long-term bonds, and just the fact that we had, 3 rate increases by the Federal Reserve in 2018, so bond prices drop at that point. I think we're expecting 2 more here in 2019, so I think it just has to do with the fact that bond prices dropped over the course of 2018, so that's where we're seeing the losses. So just a little bit of clarity on that, as well as what are we able to do with the long-term debt, or the long-term investment account? Just understanding what rules we have as a municipality in terms of using that. I need to get a little
the financial policies that govern that?
Right, because I don't think that we can actually invest in risky stocks or that type of thing, so we're going to see losses, or I think there's just some rules around what we can do with long-term investments because it is the citizens' money. But
I can ask the finance director to provide all that information.
Perfect. Thank you. And then also, I want to bring, I want for city councils to start reviewing, just have a study session next week or as soon as possible, just to talk about the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee and just what their role is. The past couple meetings, I've been disturbed. I was at the last one back on December 19th or so, something along those lines. And, I witnessed another citizen being unable or not given the ability to speak about any issue or just an issue that she had. Well, for last meeting, it was actually to praise code enforcement. The previous meeting had to do with the fact that it was just comments about the advisory committee overall. So I guess a question to the city attorney, I know that you brought this up previously about can any board or commission silence a member of the public from speaking at any meeting? Just clarity on that, whether that's allowed as part of our code.
Charter requires that all boards and commissions follow the procedures adopted by the City Council. You've just adopted a new procedure manual, and the new procedure manual does not specifically include a requirement that citizens be allowed to speak to boards and commissions. The First Amendment element is if anyone who is not an acting member of a board or commission is allowed to speak to the board, then anybody who comes forward has to be given that same right. So, for example, if you have an individual who is an alternate, who speaks regularly at those meetings, if they're not actually sitting as a member of the board, but they are speaking regularly, they're speaking as a member of the public, and anyone else has the same right to speak as much as that person does. So if there is no, this is one of those issues that council needs to decide. Do they want to mandate that all boards and commissions allow for citizens to speak, and if so, what that policy will be, and we could modify Bob's rules, or they go back to the First Amendment rules, which says everybody has to be treated identically.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. I think what I want to prevent from happening is just another citizen being shot down for giving their viewpoint on an issue that concerns them about the city. So we do have committees and boards in place to have citizens come and speak to them about ways to improve the city, and that information then gets relayed to City Council, and we approve or reject a change to the ordinance. When we do silence a voice within the committee that has a certain viewpoint, I'm concerned that we're not going to get the relevant information to us as a member of council. So I don't know if we want to speak. If anybody wants to speak to it at this moment, I actually do have 2 more things after that. But
are you open to council members asking you questions at this point? I am going to limit this. It's got to be really quick. We're going to be done, okay? So Councilmember Cuesta was first, I believe.
Thank you. And I've received several concerned citizens contact me about it as well. It was disheartening, especially the most recent one where I believe the citizen was threatened with removal or that the police were going to escort her out, which I thought was well outside the spirit of council. And I appreciate the request for a study session, probably the best way to do it. I do view these boards as tributaries into council. that folks can express their opinions there that will eventually make it to council. And I did think it was outside the boundaries of what's allowed, especially considering in this most recent meeting, the subject that she was there to speak on, 2 other folks immediately after her were allowed to speak on that same topic. So it seemed very selective in removing this one person. And I know you spoke up in that meeting, and I appreciate you doing so, Councilmember Sierra, but probably a worthwhile topic across all boards, so everybody knows what those ground rules are, from chairman to alternate. Thank you, Mayor.
So you would like to see us have a study session on this?
Certainly, yes.
Great. Councilmember Barentine.
I would like to see it come to a study session like you had just said. I mean, I certainly want for people to be able to speak, but I also don't want to burden the boards and commissions with conversations that they have no authority over. So we may want to take a look at something like that. So, and whether they have a time limit or not, depending on how they handle it. So if we're going to set the guidelines for that, kind of consistent with what we're doing, but we'll discuss that when we have a study session. So thank you.
Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm concerned that this happened more than once and in succession on this particular group. Secondly, that other individuals were allowed to speak after this individual was not allowed to speak. I mean, we definitely should speak, but I think it's a very serious matter, and I don't see it occurring across all boards and commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember
Yep.
Sierra, for bringing it up. I definitely think we should have a study session on it. I have heard lots of concerns as well. I was concerned when I brought it up a month or so ago about what I heard. It's very troubling, and I think it is a time-sensitive issue, so I think the sooner we could talk about it in a study session, the better.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm not going to recognize you, Councilmember Barentine. I'm going to allow Councilmember Sierra to continue on, and we're going to be done in the next 5 minutes, I hope.
Okay, so just real quick. So I want to thank all the candidates that applied for the board and committees that we met on Thursday. I was very impressed with the group overall, and just the fact that a lot of people have very positive things to say about the city, and just like the fact that they want to get involved. So very happy for that. And then also in regards to the discussion that we had earlier today during the study session, just a little bit more clarity on the park in lieu fee that is basically an impact fee, but
The park fee in lieu ordinance.
right. So just getting an understanding of that, I'd like to bring that I'd like to have that as a study session as well, especially since we're talking about such a big redevelopment of the city center area, what those funds, the in lieu fee, can be used for, the ordinance can be used for, where it goes, what power as council do we have to make any modifications to it. Just getting that understanding while we're having these talks concurrently about the redevelopment. And that is it.
Thank you.
Could I ask for clarification on that?
Yes.
You just want to talk about the current ordinance with the park fee in lieu, or do you want to talk about impact fees on a more theoretical basis?
Well, I guess initially just understanding
where we are
with the in lieu ordinance today. What is it earmarked for? Anything specific? And then obviously based off of that, the answers to that, what we can do to make any type of modifications if we didn't feel it represented the city overall. So
thank you.
Thank you. Next is City Manager's report.
No report.
And City Attorney's report, item 14.
No report.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy New Year again.
You too. No more relatives for what?
No, thanks. It was great.
thank you.
I'm actually
I was like, should I ask for a break or not? Well, I kept looking. I was like, we only have like 4 more hours left.
Whatever.
Yeah, I know. And I was like,
all right. So tomorrow we're meeting at 8:30.
Too bad we didn't make it till mine.